Chapter 172. On the 5th of June, Shanghai County's operation to suppress the bandits finally came to an end. The Mixed Brigade's 10-day operation to suppress the bandits had yielded a bountiful harvest. They obtained a total of 2,500 gold coins, 3,000 captives, and a large number of rations, supplies, and weapons. As for the special items, aside from the heavy infantry commander's tally, they also obtained a Territories Specialty Scroll. Territories Specialty Scroll. 3. After use, the output of crops increases by 10%. There was a total of 6 Territory Specialty Scrolls. Shanghai County already obtained the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th scrolls. They still had not obtained the 1st, 5th, and 6th scrolls. Of these, the first one increased the attraction rate of refugees, the 5th increased the army's leveling speed, and the last one increased the success rate of the territory's talents breaking through bottleneck. All of these were extremely important. The seized funds basically replenished the funds spent on the previous army expansion. Of course, the larger expenditure was the continuous increase in the army's pay. Right now, Friendship Town paid for the Vanguard Battalion's pay, North Sea Town paid for the Northern Sea Fleet's pay, and Wolf Mountain's garrison camp did not pay. Hence, the main camp only needed to pay for the mixed brigades stationed in the northern camp and the city defense camp and the Divine Strategy Battalion stationed in the city. Even so, Shanghai County's military expenditure reached 2,000 gold coins a month. Of the 3,000 captives, 250 of the pirates were sent to North Sea Town to become the Northern Sea Fleet's reserve soldiers. This way, the Northern Sea Fleet's 3rd Battalion's reserve soldiers were full. Once North Sea Town was promoted to North Sea County, these reserve soldiers would officially change jobs and form the Northern Sea Fleet's 3rd Battalion. As for the remaining captives, aside from a small portion selected by the military and recruited into the reserve soldiers, the rest were sent to serve in the 2nd City Wall construction project. After the project was completed, these people would be sent to work in the brick kilns and pottery factories. After the suppression of the bandits, the selection of the Lord's Residence's personal guards officially began. Before the selection, Ouyang Shua announced that the personal guard's pay would be twice that of the other troop. No good man could resist the temptation of glory and money. Ouyang Shua specially instructed Wang Feng to choose high-ranked elite soldiers who were not willing to change jobs to early-ranked generals. According to Ouyang Shua's understanding, if rank 9 elite soldiers did not choose to change jobs, they had a certain chance of advancing further and becoming even more elite soldiers. In the afternoon, as Ouyang Shua was reading, Tian Wenjing, the newly appointed head of the Internal Affairs Bureau, walked in. "Sir, congratulations." Tian Wenjing could not hide his joy. "Oh, what's there to be happy about?" It was rare for this cold-faced chief to be so happy, so Ouyang Shua was very interested. "There's news from the Mystic Bird tribe, saying that there's a small tribe that's really having a hard time. They're willing to bring their entire tribe down the mountain and settle down in our territory," Tian Wenjing said with a smile. Ever since the extermination of the Gale tribe, Tian Wenjing had been appointed by Ouyang Shua as the Lord's special envoy, fully in charge of the affairs of the mountain barbarians. Some time ago, the Ministry of Internal Affairs was established and the head of the Material Reserve Division was replaced. This task was not handed over to the newly appointed head of the Resource Division, Shen Jue. Instead, it was handed over to Tian Wenjing. Ouyang Shua considered that, firstly, it wasn't easy for Tian Wenjing to get familiar with all the tribes. If they changed him halfway, it would be a waste of effort. Secondly, the responsibility of the Ministry of Internal Affairs included the management of the floating population, so it would be more appropriate for the Ministry of Internal Affairs to be in charge of it. After the Labor Day holiday, Ouyang Shua decisively adjusted the policy regarding the mountain barbarians. On the one hand, the relatives of the barbarian warriors moved to Shanghai Town and settled down there. On the other hand, the barbarians were encouraged to go down the mountain, either to settle down there or to work in Shanghai Town. Now, a month had passed, and this policy had finally paid off. Which tribe is it? Ouyang Shuo asked. It's one of the 8 tribes that agreed to cooperate with us in the third batch. Unlike the Mystic Bird tribe and the 3 tribes in the second batch, the barbarian warriors and the grain subsidy were all one-time use. They could still get paid through the Wolf Mountain mine. Therefore, once the grain subsidy is used up, we'll return to the precarious situation we were in before, Tian Wenjing explained. Ouyang Shuo nodded, indicating that he understood. The Mystic Bird tribe was the first barbarian tribe to cooperate with Shanhai County, and they also benefited the most. Not only did their tribesmen occupy the majority of the miners in the Wolf Mountain mine, but their influence in the surrounding tribes also gradually increased. They replaced the exterminated Gale tribe and became the de facto leader of this area. The second batch of barbarians that cooperated with Shanhai County were 3 small tribes. It was also this time that the Gale tribe rejected Shanhai County's friendship, laying the groundwork for their future extermination. The tribesmen of these 3 small tribes were also arranged to mine in the Wolf Mountain mine. Therefore, their living conditions had already improved. The third batch of barbarians that cooperated with Shanhai County was after the extermination of the Gale tribe. These tribes were intimidated by Shanhai County's power and had no choice but to submit. In this batch, there were a total of 2 medium-sized tribes and 6 small tribes. Because the Wolf Mountain mine was already full, this batch of tribes only received a one-time subsidy. In the future, they could only rely on gathering herbs in the mountains in exchange for some food from Shanhai County. Their lives were very unstable. In addition, the tribe's most elite warriors had been selected by Shanhai County and recruited into the army. Therefore, it was even more difficult for the tribes to hunt than before. Therefore, it was understandable that this third batch of tribes could not resist the temptation to go down the mountain. After all, no matter which ethnic group it was, they all had the idea of not worrying about scarcity, but worrying about inequality. If it was in the past, everyone was the same and lived a hard life. There was nothing to complain about or be envious of. However, because of the existence of the Wolf Mountain mine, these tribes were imperceptibly divided into 2 parts, and the gap between the rich and the poor began to appear. In addition, these tribes had tasted the sweetness of Shanhai County's food subsidy, which allowed their tribesmen to live comfortably for a period of time. Now that they were being beaten back to their original state, no one was willing to accept it. In addition, Tian Wenjing kept adding fuel to the fire from the side. Finally, there were tribes that could not take it anymore and were willing to abandon the so-called barbarian tradition. They agreed to go down the mountain and settle down in Shanhai County. After understanding the cause and effect, Ouyang Shuo became more and more confident in his mountain barbarian policy. In this, there was a drastic measure, followed by a carrot and a stick. It was really the policy of the foreign tribes to the extreme. How many people are there in this tribe? Ouyang Shuo continued to ask Tian Wenjing. There are more than 1,800 people. Ouyang Shuo nodded. Such a small number of people was considered a small number in a small tribe. Let's settle this tribe in Pool Town. That place is closer to their homeland, so the difference should not be too big for them to adapt in a short time. In the future, the mountain barbarian tribes that will go down the mountain will also be mainly arranged in Pool Town. I will send an official letter to Pool Town, asking them to cooperate with the Ministry of Internal Affairs and do a good job in the selection and construction of the settlement. Understood. Yangon, you have handled the affairs of the mountain barbarians very well. I am very satisfied. However, we cannot be satisfied with the current situation. We still have to continue to increase our efforts in persuasion, especially taking this opportunity to persuade more mountain barbarian tribes to go down the mountain and settle down in Shanhai County. Ouyang Shuo said in the end. Don't worry, sir. I will definitely not let you down. Tian Wenjing promised solemnly. After Tian Wenjing left, Ouyang Shuo started to write an official letter to Zhao Dexian, the chief official of Pool Town. In the official letter, Ouyang Shuo wrote that the mountain barbarian settlement would be built according to the standards of a first-class town. The settlement would be a purely agricultural settlement. They had to plan a large enough farmland area and reclaim it in time so that they could start sowing the second season of rice at the end of July. Other than that, Pool Town had to provide sufficient farming tools for the settlement. The existing cattle could also be temporarily rented to the settlement to reclaim the farmland. They also had to send experienced farmers to guide the mountain barbarians in farming. These mountain barbarians did not have any rice farming experience. The Ministry of Agriculture of Pool Town had to increase their support. This settlement must be made into a demonstration site to reduce the difficulty of persuading the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Pool Town also had to be responsible for the food supply of the mountain barbarians. In order to reduce the burden on Pool Town, the Ministry of Finance of the headquarters would give Pool Town a one-time financial subsidy of 1,000 gold coins. Coincidentally, Pool Town was in the process of upgrading the water conservancy facilities and building the city walls. They could be recruited into the construction site and paid according to the standards of the headquarters. Finally, Ouyang Shuo mentioned in the official letter that Pool Town had to make an overall plan for the mountain barbarian settlement. This was to prepare in advance for the mountain barbarian tribes to go down the mountain and settle down there. In Ouyang Shuo's official letter, he had considered all aspects of the matter and had specific instructions for them. It could be seen how much importance he placed on this matter. After he finished writing, Ouyang Shuo called the clerk by Nanpu and asked him to send this official letter to Pool Town immediately. Shanghai County had a fixed bailiff who was responsible for sending and receiving official letters between territories. There were a total of 4 bailiffs who were directly led by the clerk by Nanpu. After that, Ouyang Shuo got up and went to the office of the superintendent of finance. He mentioned the matter of the financial subsidy to Yingyu. This amount of money was naturally paid by Ouyang Shuo. After deducting this amount of subsidy, and the 500 gold coins used for the territory renewal, Ouyang Shuo was left with 2,000 gold coins in his storage pouch. Binger appeared in Ouyang Shuo's office punctually at 6:00 in the evening. Calling her brother for dinner after work had become a regular routine for the little girl. During this period of time, Binger had completely adapted to life in Shanghai County. In the Lord's mansion, be it the officials of different levels or the servants, they all cherished and cared for the Lord's sister. In addition, Binger was originally beautiful, cute, well-behaved and sensible, which made her even more popular. Especially second brother, he followed behind Binger the moment school ended. He was a complete stalker. Today, Binger was wearing a Tang princess dress. The pink dress was embroidered with peach blossoms. She looked dignified and cute at the same time. This dress was naturally made by Qinger. To be continued. Chapter 173. On June 6, when Ouyang Shuo logged in again, he heard a system announcement. System announcement. Congratulations to player Chunshin Jun for becoming the second lord of a level 1 county in the China server. Achievement points awarded, 2,000. System announcement. Congratulations to player Chunshin Jun for becoming the second lord of a level 1 county in the China server. Achievement points awarded, 2,000. System announcement. Congratulations to player Chunshin Jun for becoming the second lord of a level 1 county in the China server. Achievement points awarded, 2,000. After half a month, the China region finally had its second first-class county. During this period of time, 5 first-class counties had been born around the world. Among the top 10 territories in the world, except for Mikasa Town, Bangalore Town, Freetown Town, and Handan Town, the remaining 6 territories had all been promoted. Shanghai County's advantage was once again narrowed by the other territories. After Lord Chuanshin's Danyang district was promoted, Ouyang Shuo teased in the Alliance channel. Everyone, when are you going to apply for promotion? You can't fall too far behind. Among the 5 allies, Mulan Town and Black Lion Town were only second-class towns. They were still far from being promoted. Dragon-Seeking Town had just been promoted to a third-class town not long ago, so it was not that fast. The ones with the most hope were Fallen Phoenix Town and Spirit Rhino Town, which had been promoted to third-class towns long ago. I'm prepared to wait another week. Bai Hua was the first to respond. What about Feng Wu? Wui, I was just about to look for you, said Feng Chihuang. I've just applied for promotion. 9th will welcome the bandits' attack. This is a good thing. What do you need me to do? Everything else is fine. I just want to borrow your 3 bows 8 bulls bed crossbow. Ouyang Shua didn't hesitate in the slightest. No problem. Recently, the crossbow division built another one. Together with the original 2, I'll lend them to you. Furthermore, I will send Shanghai County's Divine Strategy Battalion commander to guide you on how to operate it. That's great. I was still worrying about the training of the members, Feng Chihuang said happily. It's my duty. When the rest of you apply for promotion, just let me know. You can all borrow it. Yay, the alliance leader is mighty. Mulan Lanyue was cheeky again. Might +1. This was a siege lion. Mighty +2. Mighty +3. Ouyang Shua was somewhat speechless. He had no idea why goddesses like Bai Hua and Feng Chihuang were joining in the fun. Naturally, Ouyang Shua was doing this in the hopes that all of them would be able to smoothly advance to the next level, and thus increase the strength of the alliance of mountains and seas. Wui, let me tell you a piece of news. Feng Chihuang said. What news? Including my family, the fathers and grandfathers of the major forces have all entered the game. Although they would not walk in front of the stage, they would help behind the scenes to plan. So, you have to be careful when dealing with Di Chun and the others. Don't look down on them again. Feng Chihuang reminded. Don't worry, I'll pay attention. Ouyang Shua had long since expected such a situation, so he was very calm. Also, don't think that everything is fine just because the currency exchange platform is closed. The family's power is beyond my imagination. Originally, many of the family's elites, including members with different surnames, were maintaining the operations of various industries in the real world. Now, this batch of elites had all entered the game. With this group of core strength, it will be easier to manage the territory. Some of the more powerful fellows aren't any weaker than historical figures, especially when it comes to financial and business matters. Because of Ouyang Shua's straightforwardness, Feng Chihuang returned the favor and spoke very clearly. Others might not know, but Feng Chihuang was certain that Ouyang Shua was definitely not a descendant of some hidden family. With the real world in such a chaotic state, even the most hidden family would have to surface. How could they be like Ouyang Shua, who had become even more low-key? Feng Chihuang valued Ouyang Shua as an ally. Naturally, she did not want Ouyang Shua to underestimate the enemy. In fact, how could Ouyang Shua not know what Feng Chihuang said? Not only that, Ouyang Shua also knew that the Battle Wolf's Blood Red Town's strength had recently soared. This was because a batch of professional soldiers had joined the Blood Red Town, forming a professional regular army. The discipline and tactical attainments of this batch of soldiers were many times better than the NPCs of the NPCs. Especially in intelligence warfare and special operations, they had an absolute advantage. Not only that, the commanding ability of the officers was no weaker than the generals of ancient times. It could even be said that in some aspects they were even stronger than the NPC generals. The only thing they lacked was the characteristics and martial arts of the NPC generals. They were slightly lacking in individual combat ability. Therefore, this was equivalent to the Blood Red Town directly obtaining an elite army, in addition to many historical strategists and historical generals. One could imagine how terrifying it was. The other members of the original 6 hegemons of Handan City were also more or less strengthened. In no time, they would all be promoted to a first-class county. What Ouyang Shuo was interested in was that after the migration, Di Chen would lose the means to suppress the Kill Ripper. He was really looking forward to how this pair of enemies would get along in the future. If not for Ouyang Shuo's accumulation, the current Shanhai County would not even have the right to challenge them. If not for Ouyang Shuo's conscious effort to nurture the officials of the natives from the village level, he would have been crushed by Di Chen. Luckily, Ouyang Shuo had a backup plan. Otherwise, he would really have to hand over the throne of the first place in the China server. The biggest weakness of these large factions was that no matter how powerful they were in real life, once they entered the game, they had to follow the basic rules of the game. In terms of understanding of the game, no one could compare to Ouyang Shuo. For example, these financial elites in real life entered the game, but there was no stock market or unified bank in the game, only the most primitive bank. Coupled with the lack of capital, it was very difficult for them to play any trick. Of course, if these financial elites were to be brought to Shanhai County to manage the Bank of the Four Seas, then the management level of the Bank of the Four Seas would be greatly improved. Another example was the agricultural experts in real life. Although they could modify the ancient water conservancy projects, it was impossible for them to create hybrid rice to increase the yield. As for fertilizers and pesticides, it was impossible. Thank you for the reminder. Ouyang Shuo was very grateful for Feng Qiuhuang's kindness. The topic that Feng Qiuhuang brought out caused the atmosphere in the chat to become very gloomy. Among the 6 members of the Shanhai Alliance, only Feng Qiuhuang was from a large faction. The others were all ordinary players. Originally, these things were indistinct. Now that Feng Qiuhuang had revealed the advantages of a large faction, how could the Siege Lion and Dragon-seeking acupoints not feel pressured? Alright, everyone, don't be discouraged. As long as we are willing to find talents, there will be no shortage of them. So what if we don't have elite players? As long as we make good use of the natives, we can still manage the territory well. Moreover, the natives are not without benefit. At the very least, they have absolute loyalty and respect for their lord. As for those elite players, they definitely won't be able to do this. Ouyang Shuo encouraged everyone in the chat. I think Wui is right. Shanhai County only has one player, Wui, and he's not at the top of the world. From this, we can see that the potential of the natives is huge. The key is whether we can know our people well. Bai Hua was the first to support Ouyang Shuo's point of view. I also support Brother Wui. Big Sister Mu, how are you? Mu Lanyue followed. After hearing Ouyang Shuo and Bai Hua's words, the Siege Lion and Dragon-seeking acupoints felt much more relaxed. This was all Ouyang Shuo could help them with. After all, they had to walk their own path. Big brothers and sisters, do you guys lack money? My Mulan town is very poor. Even if Big Sister Mu wanted to expand the army, she wouldn't be able to gather enough money for a class advancement. Little Abdomen's black magnolia moon broke the silence and exposed her own dirty linen. Ouyang Shuo's heart ached for this sensible girl. He said, Yu, if you need money, Big Brother can lend you some. No, Brother Wui. Although you have money, Shanhai County is so big. I don't want to take up Big Brother's funds. Mu Lanyue directly refused. Ouyang Shuo's heart stirred. He said, since that's the case, Yu, I have a suggestion. You can consider it. What suggestion? You all know that Shanhai County has a bank called the Bank of the Four Seas, right? Yes, I know. My suggestion is to open a branch of the Bank of the Four Seas in your Mulan town and provide low-interest loans to your territory. This way, we can solve Mulan town's financial problems and create profits for Shanhai County. It's a win-win situation, and you don't have to feel guilty. Of course, I have to say that this way, Mulan town's economic lifeline will gradually be controlled by the Bank of the Four Seas. You'll have to weigh the pros and cons of this. Ouyang Shuo's words were very thorough. He clearly stated the pros and cons. Brother Wui, I have to discuss it with Big Sister Mu before I can give you an answer. Of course. After listening to Ouyang Shua and Mu Lanyue's conversation, the other four were silent. Bai Hua and Feng Qiuhuang didn't lack money for the time being. On the other hand, the siege lion and dragon seeking acupuncture point were facing the same problem as Mu Lanyue. However, as Ouyang Shua had said, once they allowed the Bank of the Four Seas to open a branch in their territory, it would be equivalent to giving up control of the territory's economic lifeline. This required a lot of courage and trust. In fact, even if the siege lion and dragon seeking acupuncture point took the initiative to propose it, Ouyang Shua wouldn't agree. The reason why Ouyang Shua agreed to Mu Lanyue's proposal was because both of them were from Lianzhou Basin. In the future, they were destined to merge together. The earlier they could achieve economic integration, the better it would be for their future integration. In addition, Ouyang Shua also wanted to use the opportunity of opening a branch of the Bank of the Four Seas to speed up the development of Mulan Town. Only with the rapid development of Mulan Town could they firmly control the Southern Guard Pass. To be continued. Chapter 174. Mu Lanyue turned off the Alliance channel and found Mu Guiying. She told Mu Guiying about Ouyang Shua's proposal, wanting to hear Mu Guiying's opinion. Mu Guiying fell silent after listening to her. Obviously, this problem was a dilemma for Mu Guiying. Her original intention was to allow Mulan Town to operate independently. However, the reality was that Mulan Town's development was slow due to the lack of funds. She had too much energy to focus on military affairs. After a long time, Mu Guiying looked at Mu Lanyue and asked, "Little Yu, let me ask you. How much trust do you have in your brother Wui? Besides being an ally, do you have any other feelings for him?" Mu Lanyue was startled. She didn't understand why Mu Guiying would ask such a question. Fortunately, she had always trusted Mu Guiying. Even though she found it strange, she still answered seriously, "Brother Wui is not only an ally, he is also a big brother. Although he is not my real brother, I can feel that Brother Wui cares for me from the bottom of his heart." Mu Guiying nodded and didn't deny it. "Then let me ask you again. What do you think about the future of Mulan Town? We are in the same Lianzhou Basin as Shanhai County. We will have to face this problem one day. To tell you the truth, I have also thought about this problem. You already know that Mom and Dad will be separated from me for a long time. The reason I want to maintain Mulan Town's operations is to wait for the day Mom and Dad return. I want them to be proud of me. As for the future, integrating into Shanhai County's system is the best choice. However, before that, I want to rely on my own abilities to manage Mulan Town well," Mu Lanyue replied. Mu Guiying nodded and said, "I understand. In that case, I agree to allow Shanhai County to set up a branch of the Bank of the Four Seas in Mulan Town. In this way, I can put more energy into suppressing bandits and train an elite force for the territory to guard the southern pass." Mu Lanyue was delighted. "All right, I will let Brother Wui know." After receiving Mu Lanyue's confirmation, Ouyang Shua got up and went to Yingyu's office. "Big brother." Yingyu quickly got up and invited Ouyang Shua to take a seat. After Ouyang Shua sat down, he explained the situation in Mulan Town and then said, "Yingyu, my idea is to transfer Yang Yun back from North Sea Town and station her in Mulan Town. What do you think?" Cui Yingyu pondered for a while and smilingly said, "I think it's feasible." Yang Yun had participated in the entire process of setting up the Bank of the Four Seas, so she had a clear understanding of how it worked. In addition, I have accumulated a lot of grassroots experience from managing the bank's Beihai Town branch. I should be able to do it. All right. In that case, he would send a letter to Yang Yun in the name of the finance department, asking her to return to the headquarters immediately after handing over the work in Beihai Town. As for the successor of North Sea Town, let the finance department decide. Understood. Pamelo nodded and then asked, "Big brother, how much reserve funds are you preparing for the Mulan Town branch?" Ouyang Shua already had an answer to this question. Mulan Town definitely won't do if they don't have enough reserve. The first sum of funds will be set at 2,000 gold coins. This is also all the liquid funds we can use right now. This amount of money should be able to support us for a period of time. When the economy is better off in the future, we can increase the investment. I agree. Ing Pomelo also came from a noble clan. Naturally, she knew that once a bank gained a stable footing, it would be a money-making machine. The initial investment would bring in rich returns in the future. Naturally, she supported it. At 2:00 p.m., the Divine Strategy Battalion commander, Wang Yuanfeng, arrived at Luofeng Town with 3 3-bow 8-bull-bed crossbows. After sending off Wang Yuanfeng, Ouyang Shuo turned and returned to the overlord's residence. At 4:00 p.m., Yang Yun returned to Shanhai County and immediately rushed to the overlord's office to report. After Yang Yun's routine report, Ouyang Shuo instructed, Mulan Town's overlord, Mu Lanyue, is my friend. The Bank of the Four Seas opening a branch in Mulan Town is a normal business activity. When you arrive in Mulan Town, remember to maintain absolute neutrality. You absolutely cannot interfere with Mulan Town's economic affairs, all the more you cannot interfere with Mulan Town's territorial affairs. Do you understand what I mean? The Bank of the Four Seas was like a sharp blade. If the wielder of this blade could not maintain a clear mind and had any evil thoughts, he might cause endless trouble, putting Mu Lanyue in a difficult position. Naturally, Ouyang Shuo trusted Yang Yun. However, due to the importance of this matter, he still gave her some instructions out of worry. Yang Yun nodded seriously and said, "My lord, don't worry. I understand what to do." "That's good." Ouyang Shuo waved his hand and said, "All right, I've already said all that needs to be said. It's getting late. Go to Division Chief Chui's place and see if he has any other instructions. Tomorrow morning, I'll personally send you to Mulan Town to take up your post." "Yes," Yang Yun answered and stood up to take her leave. The next morning, Ouyang Shuo brought Yang Yun to the transportation formation and headed for Mulan Town. Yang Yun was not really going to take up her post alone. Aside from her, the finance department also picked 2 capable salesmen to be her assistants and go with her. As for the preparations for the Bank of the Four Seas Mulan Town branch, Mulan Town would be in charge of them, including the selection of basic employees. Mu Lanyue and Mu Guiying were already waiting at Mulan Town's transportation formation. After the two sides met, Ouyang Shuo introduced them to each other. If the Bank of the Four Seas wanted to gain a foothold in Mulan Town, they would need Mu Lanyue's support. There were many opportunities for both sides to interact with each other, so Ouyang Shuo naturally had to act as a go-between. Ouyang Shuo left Yang Yun and her 2 assistants behind to discuss the preparations for the Bank of the Four Seas branch with Mu Lanyue. He, accompanied by Mu Guiying, walked out of Mulan Town and headed for the Southern Guard Pass. The Southern Guard Pass was located 20 kilometers south of Mulan Town. It firmly guarded the only passage from the Lianzhou Basin to the hinterland of Guangxi and was currently occupied by a group of mountain bandits. From afar, one could see a majestic pass towering in the middle of a canyon that was nearly 50 meters wide. The entire pass had experienced the baptism of time, leaving behind mottled traces. The Southern Guard Pass was divided into the main pass and the east and west side gate. The main pass was 20 meters tall and 30 meters wide. It was completely built with huge stone slabs. At the bottom of the pass was the only entrance. It was 10 meters tall and 8 meters wide. There were a total of 3 gates, all of which were closed. The main pass extended to the east and west sides, sticking to the cliffs on both sides without the slightest gap. The extensions on both sides were slightly lower, only 15 meters tall. There was a side gate on each side that was 6 meters tall and 4 meters wide for people and goods to enter and exit. On the way back from the Southern Guard Pass, Ouyang Shuo asked Mu Guiying, "General Mu, do you know anything about the mountain bandits that occupy the pass?" The mountain bandits were still a hidden danger. Ouyang Shua planned to cooperate with Mulan Town to uproot them and let Mulan Town be in charge of guarding the pass. Mu Guiying shook her head. You saw it just now. Our spies have no way of getting close to the Southern Guard Pass. They'll be exposed to the pass guards if they go any closer. Ouyang Shua nodded and asked, Then, what do they rely on to make a living? Why haven't they come out to plunder? Especially Mulan Town, which is right under their noses. Have they never been harassed? Mu Guiying frowned. That's what I find strange. According to my speculation, when they first occupied the Southern Guard Pass, there was likely a large stockpile of resources that would be enough for them to enjoy for a long time. Second, there are usually people coming and going from the pass, so the mountain bandits can still make a living by collecting some transit fees. That's why they stay in the pass and rarely come out to plunder. After all, mountain bandits are also people. If they don't have to worry about their livelihood, they won't be willing to go out to plunder. That will only lead to bloodshed. Ouyang Shua nodded in agreement with Mu Guiying's speculation. He said with a smile, If that's the case, then these mountain bandits aren't a motley crew. Their leader isn't simple at all. Not only is he clear-headed and far-sighted, but he also has a high prestige among the mountain bandits. What do you mean? Mu Guiying was a bit curious. Think about it. It's just as you said. Most of the mountain bandits are happy to be content with the status quo. That's because many of them have nowhere else to go. They've been forced by reality to become bandit. Their goal is to make a living so that they won't starve to death. Of course, this group of people isn't willing to take the risk. However, mountain bandits are mountain bandit. Among them, there's also a group of evil people who are savage by nature. They're either great bandits or disciples who have abandoned their sections. They've lost all humanity and take pleasure in plundering and killing. Such a group of evil people won't be willing to stay in the pass and enjoy a peaceful life. The leader of the bandits was able to suppress this group of villains and restrict them from leaving seclusion. Tell me, don't you think this leader's prestige is very high? Ouyang Shua explained. Mu Guiying nodded in agreement. So, for the sake of the long term, we have to think of a way to eradicate these mountain bandits. Otherwise, if one day the leader can't control his subordinates, wouldn't it be a waste of time? To Mulan Town, they're a ticking time bomb that could explode at any time, Ouyang Shua reminded. I understand. Mulan Town will strengthen its investigation of the mountain bandits in Southern Guard Pass. We'll do our best to find out more about them in the shortest time possible, Mu Guiying said with a solemn expression. If you need Shanghai County's support, just say the word, Ouyang Shua promised. Of course. When the two of them returned to Mulan Town, Mulan Yue was still discussing some matters with Yang Yun. Ouyang Shua didn't stay in Mulan Town for long. He gave the 2,000 gold coins to Mulan Yue for safekeeping. When the bank was built, Mulan Yue would use the storage bag function of the players to melt the gold coins and deposit them into the bank's vault. Ouyang Shua then returned to Shanghai County through the teleportation array. To be continued. Chapter 175. 3 days later, on the 9th of June, Luofeng Town was successfully promoted to Luofeng County, becoming the third territory in the China region to be promoted to a Level 1 county. On the 10th of June, Ouyang Shua had just logged on when he heard a system announcement. System announcement. Congratulations to player Wolf Warrior for becoming the 4th Lord of China region to be promoted to a Level 1 county. The reward is 1,600 achievement points. System announcement. Congratulations to player Wolf Warrior for becoming the 4th Lord of China region to be promoted to a Level 1 county. The reward is 1,600 achievement points. System announcement. Congratulations to player Wolf Warrior for becoming the 4th Lord of China region to be promoted to a Level 1 county. The reward is 1,600 achievement points. As expected, Blood Red Town, which had the direct support of the military, was suddenly promoted. Stimulated by Blood Red Town's promotion, Bai Hua couldn't take it anymore and decided to apply for promotion 3 days in advance. In other words, Luofeng town would officially welcome the bandits on the 13th of June. As a result, Wang Yuanfeng, who had just rushed back from Luofeng County, was sent by Ouyang Shua to Lingxi Town to assist Lingxi Town in setting up the 3 bows 8 bulls bed crossbows and train the bed crossbowmen. The Bank of the Four Seas Mulan Town branch had officially opened for business yesterday. Mulan Yue used Mulan Town's name to take out a low-interest loan of 1,000 gold coins for the expansion of the army and the construction of the city wall. The remaining 1,000 gold coins were given to the individual businesses, workshops, and shops in Mulan Town to provide low-interest loans for their operations. On the same day, North Sea Town's population reached the upper limit of 10,000 people and was officially promoted to North Sea County. The promotion of a subsidiary territory didn't need to go through the systems test. As long as the basic conditions were met, it would automatically be promoted. After North Sea County was promoted, Ouyang Shua used the name of the Lord's Mansion to officially appoint Gu Xiuwen as the North Sea County Magistrate. At the same time, it was clearly stated that the county magistrate's administrative rank was equivalent to that of the head of the headquarters. Before the promotion, there wasn't a clear position for each subsidiary territory's chief. The titles of village chief, town mayor, and chief officer weren't uniform. The administrative ranks weren't clear either. Using this opportunity, Ouyang Shua further standardized the management of the subsidiary territories. At the same time, he delegated some of his authority. It was clearly stated that the county magistrate, the chief administrative officer, the chief internal affairs officer, the chief financial officer, and the chief material reserve officer would be directly appointed and administered by the Lord's Mansion. The Lord's Mansion didn't interfere with the county magistrate's appointment anymore. Instead, it was directly appointed by the county magistrate. The administrative ranks of the subsidiary territories' officials were automatically lowered by 1 level compared to the headquarters. In other words, the 4 directors of the affiliated counties had administrative ranks equivalent to the Director General of the headquarters, and the Director General of the affiliated counties was equivalent to the Assistant Director General of the headquarters. The salary standard was implemented according to the administrative rank, not according to the position. At the same time, Ouyang Shua also clearly defined the administrative structure of the affiliated counties. There was no military office in the affiliated counties, only the Combat Readiness Department. The banks in the affiliated territories were under the direct jurisdiction of the Bank of the Four Seas, and were not under the jurisdiction of the Finance Department in the affiliated territories. There was no Salt Field Department in the affiliated territories, only the Supply Department and the Carriage Department. The separate Combat Readiness Division was placed under the jurisdiction of the Supplies Division. After North Sea County was promoted, the North Sea Fleet expanded and officially established the 3rd Battalion of the North Sea Fleet. Li Hai was appointed as the commander of the 3rd Battalion. At the same time, Ouyang Shua sent an official letter to Pei Donglai, requesting that the North Sea Fleet initiate the selection of the 4th Battalion. When the time was right, the 4th Battalion would be established immediately. Once the North Sea Fleet expanded to 4 battalions with a total of 2,000 people, they would officially launch an attack on the Black Shark pirates on Moon Island and pull out this poisonous Fang. After dealing with the affairs of North Sea County, Ouyang Shua stood up and left the office, turning to the backyard. In the yard, Binger was playing with Heya. Heya was now an adult. He had a strong body and a mighty temperament. He had strong muscles and strong bones. He was 75 centimeters tall and weighed 55 kilograms. Heya's fur was very beautiful. It was fine and shiny, and its tail was slender and straight. Black wolfhounds were naturally smart and lively. They would occasionally play tricks on their masters. They were very territorial and friendly to the elderly and children. Poor Heya was abandoned by Ouyang Shua. Ever since Binger came, he had finally ushered in life. Oh no, it was the spring of a dog's life. The little master especially liked Heya. She brought him with her all day long, played with him, fed him all kinds of delicious food, and wandered around the territory. She was very satisfied. Big brother! Seeing Ouyang Shua, Binger immediately opened her arms and ran over. Ouyang Shua picked her up and said with a smile, "Baby, are you bored?" Binger shook her head and said with a smile, "No, Binger feels that this place is much more interesting than school." Ouyang Shua thought to himself, "Of course you're not bored. The whole territory treats you like a princess. You're welcomed everywhere you go." Gu Sanyang often took Binger to the restaurant and made all kinds of cakes for her. Chinger had prepared more than 10 sets of clothes for Binger. Even Lu Guangji, the owner of the woodworking workshop, who was greatly indebted to Ouyang Shua, dropped his work and personally made all kinds of puppets for Binger when he heard that the territory lord's sister was only 8 years old. It was already June. There was only 1 month left before the summer vacation. The Allied government decided to bring forward the holiday. Therefore, the school in the game would not officially open until the next semester began, which was the 1st of September. Binger was very happy when she found that she could play for 3 months. "Baby, Big Brother will take you to ride horses, okay?" Ouyang Shua felt guilty. He had spent too little time with her in the past half a month. If it wasn't for her, he really didn't know what would have happened. "Really?" Binger looked happy. "Of course. Yay. Great. Ride a big horse." Ouyang Shua put Binger down and held her little hand as they walked to the stable. The stable had been moved to the Martial Excellence Courtyard. When they entered the Martial Excellence Courtyard, they saw a group of soldiers training on the drill ground. They were the selected bodyguards. There were 100 of them. The soldiers stopped training and saluted Ouyang Shua when they saw him. Ouyang Shua waved his hand and gestured for them to continue. The captain of the bodyguards, Wang Feng, ran over and said, "Sir." Ouyang Shua nodded. "Wang Feng, I'm going out with Binger. Get someone to bring the horse out." "Yes." Ouyang Shua turned around and walked out of the Martial Excellence Courtyard to the entrance of the Lord's mansion. Soon, the coachman brought out Ouyang Shua's green buckskin horse. Behind the coachman, there were 4 bodyguards who were also leading green buckskin horses. They were wearing radiant armor and were fully armed. Ouyang Shua took the reins and signaled the bodyguards with his eyes. "What are they doing?" The leader of the bodyguards was smart. He immediately said in a loud voice, "Sir, this is the captain's order. He said that when you go out, the bodyguards must follow you and protect your safety." Ouyang Shua nodded. Wang Feng was really considerate. He didn't plan to ruin Wang Feng's arrangement. He said casually, "Then get on the horse. Remember, don't get too close." "Yes." Ouyang Shua turned around and told Binger to get on the horse. Then, he got on the horse himself and held Binger in front of him. When he was about to leave, Heya ran out. "Hey, Little Black, are you coming with us?" Binger called Heya like this. Heya, this cheap wretch, actually accepted this humiliating name. He didn't have the dignity of a black wolf dog. He barked at Binger twice and kept wagging his tail. Binger really understood. She turned around and said to Ouyang Shua, "Brother, let Little Black go with us." Ouyang Shua couldn't do anything but nod and agree. Binger smiled happily and shouted to Heya, "Little Black, let's go." Inside the city, Ouyang Shua only rode slowly. Along the way, when the citizens saw the lord going out with his sister, they automatically gave way and didn't forget to nod in greeting. Ouyang Shua slightly gestured and passed through the west gate into the western wilderness. In the area near the west gate, the second city wall and territory renewal project were in full swing. Ouyang Shua didn't disturb them. He passed through the second wall and went deep into the wilderness. In front of him was a flat plain. Ouyang Shua's interest was piqued and he started to gallop. Not to mention, Heya really wasn't weak. He could actually keep up with the speed of the green beetle horse. Binger sat on the horse's back and leaned on Ouyang Shua's chest. Looking at the scenery passing by on both sides, she was extremely happy. Her small mouth didn't stop, chirping non-stop. Halfway through, Ouyang Shuo raised his head and saw a small mountain not far away. He couldn't help but be startled. It turned out that he had unknowingly come to the Qingyang Temple. Since it was a coincidence, Ouyang Shuo simply went straight to the Qingyang Temple and prepared to pay a visit to the temple master Guyan. After dismounting, Ouyang Shuo carried Binger down and handed the horse to the guard who followed him. He went forward and knocked on the temple door. With a squeak, the temple door opened and a 12 or 13-year-old Taoist boy came out. After saluting Ouyang Shuo, he asked, "Who are you, young master? What business do you have in the temple?" Before Ouyang Shuo could answer, the guard behind him had already rushed to say, "Presumptuous, this is the Lord." Ouyang Shuo stopped the guard. He naturally wouldn't lower himself to the level of a Taoist boy. Moreover, the Taoist boy was young, so it was normal that he didn't know him. "Little Taoist boy, is Taoist Go in the temple? Sorry for taking the liberty to visit." The Taoist boy was a little scared after being scolded by the guard. Seeing that the Lord didn't have any intention of blaming him, he was relieved and said respectfully, "The temple master is in the temple. Please follow me, Lord." Ouyang Shuo nodded and had the guard wait outside the temple. Holding Binger's hand, he followed behind the Taoist boy and walked into the Qingyang Temple. This was the first time Ouyang Shuo had walked into the Qingyang Temple. The floor was paved with bluestone, with green bricks and green tiles. Green trees provided shade. It was a quiet and beautiful scene. Ouyang Shuo couldn't help but nod. This was indeed a good place for quiet cultivation. To be continued. Chapter 176. In the quiet room of Qingyang Temple, Ouyang Shuo and Gu Daozhong sat cross-legged facing each other. There was a small tea table between them, and Gu Daozhong was making tea. As for Bing she was playing with the Taoist children in the temple. Gu Daozhong handed a cup of tea to Ouyang Shuo. Ouyang Shuo took a sip and praised, "Good tea." The tea was Baihao tea that Ouyang Shuo asked someone to send. The water used to make the tea was Gu Daozhong's secret recipe. Therefore, the tea had a special charm. Gu Yen smiled without saying anything. He stared at Ouyang Shuo and said, "Your Excellency, did you have an encounter recently? From your body, this humble Taoist can sense a trace of the aura that belongs to my Taoism." Ouyang Shuo was shocked. This Gu Yen was really not simple. He could actually feel the inner qi of inner canon of the yellow larch in his body. During this time, he had been practicing diligently and had already reached the second level. The second level of inner canon of the yellow larch increased the upper limit of his inner force to 1,000 points. However, Ouyang Shuo could only run the circulatory cycle 5 times a day. In other words, according to this speed, he needed 180 days, which was half a year, to reach the third level. Such a slow cultivation speed couldn't help but cause Ouyang Shuo to feel anxious, and he was wondering if his method of cultivation was wrong. It should be known that inner canon of the yellow larch had 12 levels. According to this speed, even if he practiced for 10 years, he might not be able to reach the top level. Gu Yen was a Taoist. Inner canon of the yellow larch could also be classified as a Taoist. Did he have some method? Ouyang Shuo's heart moved. Perhaps his opportunity was in front of him. Ouyang Shuo didn't dare to be negligent. He said sincerely, "To tell you the truth, some time ago, I was fortunate to obtain inner canon of the yellow larch. After practicing for a period of time, I found that my practice speed was unusually slow. Please give me some advice." Gu Yen suddenly understood and said with a smile, "Your Excellency is very fortunate. Inner canon of the yellow larch is one of the top Taoist classic. Your Excellency did not enter the Taoist gate and did not read the Taoist scripture. It was naturally difficult to practice." Ouyang Shuo nodded. So that was it. Ouyang Shuo stood up and bowed to Taoist Gu. "Please accept me as your disciple, Daoist Go. Gu Daozhong turned sideways and accepted it. He invited Ouyang Shua to sit down again and said, Darren is a noble lord, a first-class count. Your status is honorable, and you are destined to enjoy the riches and honor of the mortal world. This humble Taoist does not dare to accept you as a disciple. Ouyang Shua was a little anxious and was about to stand up and bow again. Gu Daozhong stopped him. My lord, there's no need to rush. Although I can't accept you into the Tao sect, I can teach you the Tao scripture. After you return, as long as you study the Tao scripture yourself, you will definitely gain something. Ouyang Shua calmed down. It was good that there was a way. The two of them sat down again, and Gu Daozhong began to teach Ouyang Shua the Tao scripture. The lecture went on for 2 hours. Finally, the sound of the system notification resounded in Ouyang Shua's ears. System notification. Congratulations to player. Don't say you don't have clothes for receiving guidance from the head of Qingyang Monastery, Gu Daozhong. You have comprehended the Tao scripture, experienced the heavenly Tao, and comprehended the method of cultivation. As for the specific content, please explore it yourself. What the system said was specious, and Ouyang Shua did not know what effect it had. He could only find out after he returned and studied the inner canon of the Yellow Emperor. Near noon, Ouyang Shua and Binger ate at the Qingyang Temple and left. Before leaving, Daoist Go gave Ouyang Shua a copy of the Tao scripture for him to study. On the way, Binger sat on the horse and asked curiously, Brother, what were you talking about with that Uncle Daoist in the quiet room this morning? You talked for so long that Binger was bored. What a curious little girl. Ouyang Shua smiled and said, We were talking about the path of cultivation. What is cultivation? Cultivation is when adults go to school. Ouyang Shua could only explain it this way. Oh, so brother was in class. Hearing this, Binger lost interest. Back at the Lord's mansion, Ouyang Shua asked Binger to find Zissou and let Zissou play with her. He returned to his room and began to practice the inner canon of the Yellow Emperor. After one cycle, Ouyang Shua was delighted. It turned out that he could increase his internal energy by 4 points with one cycle. In other words, he could increase his cultivation speed by 4 times. Ouyang Shua did not dare to slack off and continued to cultivate. After the 5th cycle, he felt a swelling pain in his meridians and had to stop. It seemed that Taoist Ji's guidance only improved the quality of his internal energy and did not increase the number of cycles. Even so, Ouyang Shua was very satisfied. After all, it used to take him half a year to reach the 3rd level, but now he only needed 1.5 months to complete it. As long as he continued to study the Tao scripture, he would definitely be able to increase his cultivation speed again, and his future would be bright. After the cultivation ended, it was already 4:00 in the afternoon. Ouyang Shua walked out of his room and returned to the front yard to deal with today's government affairs. On the 13th of June, Lingxi Town was successfully promoted and became the 5th first-class county in China. 2 days later, the population of Shanhai County reached 20,000. Ouyang Shua walked into the meeting hall and muttered the words territory promotion. A white light flashed, and in the middle of the meeting hall, a golden stone tablet slowly rose from the ground. He pressed his right hand on the front of the stone tablet and the system notification sounded. System notification. Checking the requirements for Shanhai County's promotion. Requirement 1. The population has reached 20,000, the maximum population limit. Requirements met. Requirement 2. The construction of all basic buildings has been completed. Requirements met. Requirement 3. The territorial lord must be at least a 2nd-class earl. Requirements met. System notification. Congratulations to player who says nothing for establishing Shanhai County. All the promotion requirements have been met. Do you want to upgrade? Upgrade. On the stone tablet, a golden light shot up into the sky and exploded in the air, turning into a golden halo that spread in all directions. The halo extended to the new edge of the territory and disappeared again. System notification. Congratulations to player who says nothing for becoming the first territorial lord to be promoted to a second-class county in China. Achievement points rewarded. 2,200. System notification. Congratulations to player who says nothing for becoming the first territorial lord to be promoted to a second-class county in China. Achievement points rewarded. 2,200. System notification. Congratulations to player who says nothing for becoming the first territorial lord to be promoted to a second-class county in China. Achievement points rewarded. 2,200. Shanghai County was once again one step ahead, becoming the only second-class county in China. System notification. Congratulations to player who says nothing for becoming a second-class county. 3 basic buildings of a second-class county will be randomly selected. Player may choose one of them. System notification. 3 buildings have been randomly selected. They are the Opera Building, the Mountain Altar, and the Crop Altar. Please choose. I choose the Opera Building. System notification. The building is being automatically generated. Please check for yourself. A white light flashed, and the golden stone tablet slowly sank into the ground again. Ouyang Shua took the opportunity to check Shanghai County's attribute. Territory. Shanghai County, second-class county. Territorial lord, who says nothing, first-class earl. Title. World's #1 county, increases territory popularity by 30, popular support, 94, public security, 92, territory population, 20,000/50,000 refugee respawn rate, 201 plus 50, equals 300 refugees per day territory area, 5,000 square kilometers, territory characteristics. Refugee attraction rate increased by 50, special talent attraction rate increased by 25, crop yield increased by 60, production skill proficiency increased by 25, army soldier level increased by 20, territory talent success rate increased by 10. Political index. 60 out of 100 determines administrative efficiency, relates to popular support. Economic index. 55 out of 100 determines trade prosperity, relates to tax revenue. Cultural index. 55 out of 100 determines education development, relates to the quality of residence. Military index. 60 out of 100 determines military strength, relates to stable relationships. Subsidiary territories. Beihai County, Pool Town, Friendship Town, Territory Capital. 4 Seas Bank, Territory Association, Textile Association, Fishery Association, a Territory Industry. North Twilight Salt Field, Wolf Mountain Mine, West City Ranch, Gale Valley Military Horse Farm, Territory Special Products. Lianzhou Sanhua Wine, Colorful Silk, Baihao Tea Special Buildings. Lianzhou College, Qingyang Temple, Sangha Restaurant, Beihai Port, Hidden Buildings. Mazu Temple, Sealed, Recruitment Hall, Yellow Emperor Temple. List of basic construction buildings. Frowny Face Opera Building. A building used for performances. Construction requirements. Opera Building blueprints, 8,000 units of wood, 4,000 units of green bricks, 5,000 units of stone. Construction time, 10 days. Note: this building is automatically generated. Chess Courtyard, a courtyard for playing chess. Construction requirements. Chess player, chess courtyard blueprints, 8,000 units of wood, 4,000 units of green bricks, 5,000 units of stone. Construction time, 10 days. Mountain and River Altar, a place to worship the gods of agriculture. Construction requirements. Mountain and River Altar blueprints, 2,000 units of wood, 8,000 units of green bricks, 8,000 units of stone. Construction time, 10 days. Crop Altar, a place to worship the gods of agriculture and millet. Construction requirements. Crop altar blueprints, 2,000 units of wood, 8,000 units of green bricks, 8,000 units of stone. Construction time, 10 days. Calendar altar, a place to worship the gods. Construction requirements. Calendar altar blueprints, 2,000 units of wood, 8,000 units of green bricks, 8,000 units of stone. Construction time, 10 days. The 5 basic buildings of a second-class county were all cultural buildings. Especially at the county level, cultural buildings would become the mainstream of basic buildings. Among them, the mountain and river altar, crop altar, and calendar altar were the 3 essential altars for a county. The mountain and river altar was located in the southern suburbs outside the city, commonly known as the South Altar. The crop altar was located in the northwestern suburbs, commonly known as the West Altar. The calendar altar was located in the northern suburbs, commonly known as the North Altar. To be continued. Chapter 177. Among the 5 basic buildings of a second-class county, the theater would be automatically generated. The mountain and river altar, the crop altar, and the calendar altar could be built as long as one had the blueprint. The most troublesome was probably the chess hall. They needed chess players, and this required luck. Tier 2 county infrastructure building. Every blueprint sold for 500 gold. It was already very difficult to obtain such architectural blueprints from the rogue bandit camp, including the basic architectural blueprints of the Grade 1 counties. Because this kind of cultural building basically had no fate with the bandit. Therefore, the mixed brigade didn't get any usable building blueprints from the previous operation to suppress the bandit. As a result, just buying the blueprints for a Tier 2 county required 2,000 gold coins. The population limit of a Tier 2 county was raised to 50,000. Based on the spawning rate of refugees in Shanghai County, it would theoretically take 100 days for the county to reach its maximum population again. Therefore, Ouyang Shua had to plunder the population through other channels. Of course, for the other lords, there was still a huge hurdle before they could advance to a rank 3 county, and that was the restriction of nobility. Apart from Ouyang Shua, Lord Chunshan, Feng Chihuang, Zhan Lang, and Bai Hua were still only second-rank earls. Among them, War Wolf and White Birch were only able to become second-class earls by relying on the merit points awarded when they were promoted to a first-class county. Advancing from a second-class earl to a first-class earl required 12 merit points. It was practically impossible to obtain so many merit points on the main map. Therefore, they were still a long way from becoming first-rank earls. In other words, even if Lord Chunshan and Wolf Warrior used the players to fill up the population of the territory and quickly upgraded the territory to a second-class county, it would stop there. It was conceivable that the competition for the next battle mission would be even more intense. The restriction of nobility also came into play on the suzerains who had recently been promoted to rank 1 towns. From start to finish, the system did not reward these overlord players with achievement points every time their territory was promoted. They could only earn achievement points by suppressing bandit. It was truly a drop in the bucket. Therefore, if they wanted to upgrade to a second-class town, they would have to go through a lot of obstacles. The pyramid effect was beginning to show. The importance of the title also began to attract the attention of the lords. The territory of a second-class county covered an area of 5,000 square kilometers, while the Lianzhou Basin covered an area of 240,000 square kilometers. In other words, Shanghai County occupied 1/48 of the Lianzhou Basin. If the vast land occupied by the nomadic tribes was deducted, the probability of Shanghai County bordering other territories was very high. As expected, on the second day after Shanghai County was promoted, Song San came to Ouyang Shua's office. "Sir, there is important military information." Ouyang Shua's spirit shook as he quickly said, "Speak." Song San organized his thoughts before saying, "Last month, the investigation mission that Sir assigned to the Military Intelligence Division has already made progress. After the territory was promoted, The few territories that were originally a distance away from us are now at the edge of the new territory. Tell me the details, Ouyang Shua said calmly. Here. Song San continued, this batch of territory is distributed on the east and west sides. There are 5 village-level territories bordering us on the west side and 3 on the east side. These villages are all third-level villages. How are the defenses of these villages? Ouyang Shua's killing intent had already been aroused. These level 3 villages have a maximum population of 1,000 people. They have 1 to 2 platoons of garrison troop. Most of them are the most basic saber and shield soldiers, and some are even militia. Most of them are sword and shield soldiers. Some of them are even militia. Song San understood what Ouyang Shua was trying to say. Then don't hesitate. Get rid of them. Ouyang Shua made up his mind. He looked at Song San and said, we will hold an emergency military meeting at 4 in the afternoon. You and Ling Qian will attend. Understood. After Song San took his leave, Ouyang Shua called for Clerk by Nanpu and asked him to inform the Military Affairs Division Chief Go Hongliang, Mixed Brigade Commander Shi Wansui, as well as the 5 battalion commanders of the Mixed Brigade to attend an emergency military meeting at the Lord's Mansion. At 4 in the afternoon in the Lord's Mansion. After Song San and Ling Qian finished reporting on the players' territories on the east and west sides, Ouyang Shua said, how can we allow people to sleep next to us? These territories must be eradicated. What does the military have to say about this? What else can we say, sir? Leave this to the Mixed Brigade. I promise they will do it well. Shi Wansui shouted before Go Hongliang could say anything. Ouyang Shua frowned and scolded. What are you doing? Are you trying to rebel? If the 5 battalion commanders were not present, Ouyang Shua's words would have been more severe. Ouyang Shua realized that ever since he was promoted to brigade commander, Shi Wansui had been looking down on Go Hongliang. How could Ouyang Shua not be angry? Ouyang Shua could not tolerate his subordinates being so spoiled. Even a special class general like Shi Wansui could not tolerate it. Therefore, he had to nip this flame in the bud. Ouyang Shua might look gentle and refined, but once he got angry, there was no one in the army who was not afraid. Even Shi Wansui was silent after being scolded by Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua did not want to embarrass Shi Wansui and gave him a way out. He looked at Go Hongliang and said, Division Commander Go, please speak. Go Hongliang was well aware of the situation and felt even more embarrassed. Fortunately, the Lord still trusted him. Go Hongliang was not like Shi Wansui, who was shrewd. Go Hongliang collected his emotions and asked, does my lord have any time requirements regarding when to deploy the troops? Ouyang Shua was startled and said, we must finish the battle before the end of this month. The reason why Ouyang Shua had said it before the end of the month was because he did not want to drag it out until July. At that time, players would die and their levels would return to 0, and all their items would drop. As the first territory to initiate a territorial war, the pressure they had to endure was too great. Go Hongliang nodded and said, as the saying goes, one must first pacify the interior before resisting foreign aggression. There was still plenty of time. Then, this subordinate suggests that we first use 10 days of time to wipe out the bandits in the newly added territory. July was coming, and the rice was about to be harvested. He had to first ensure that this batch of food would not be coveted by the bandits within the borders. In addition, with the expansion of the territory, the settlements would also have to move out. It was impossible to develop only the core area of Shanhai County in the territory of 5,000 square kilometers. Only by eliminating the roving bandits and ensuring the stability of the territory can we establish new settlements and open up new farmlands. Ouyang Shua nodded in satisfaction. He raised his head to look at the generals and said casually, do you understand what Division Chief Go said? Yes. The generals replied in unison, not daring to be vague. All of you are generals, not pure soldiers. It is important to kill enemies on the battlefield. However, if you want to become a famous general, you must think of war from a broader strategic perspective. You must be aware of the overall situation. Today, Division Chief Go has taught all of you a good lesson. I hope you will remember it well. Ouyang Shua warned again. He did not specifically mention Shi Wansue's name. Understood. Ouyang Shua returned to his office after the military meeting. His territory had just been upgraded, and there were a lot of things waiting for him to deal with. Beihai County Magistrate Gu Xiuwen had sent an official letter requesting a sum of money from the headquarters to start the construction of Beihai County's first city wall. Beihai County's city wall would be built according to the standards of Shanghai County's second city wall. It would be 6 kilometers long, 12 meters tall, and 6 meters wide. Apart from that, Gu Xiuwen also asked if he could start the construction of Beihai County's subsidiary territory. After Shanghai County had been upgraded, the 3 towns were first-level subsidiary territories. They could already develop 3 more subsidiary territories. However, Ouyang Shua did not agree to it. The reason was that Shanghai County, Beihai County, Pool Town, and Friendship Town were too close to each other. Just like what Go Hongliang had said before, they would only develop the core area. The newly added territories would not be fully developed and utilized, which would result in a huge waste. The location of the subsidiary territories could not be moved. If it was said that Ouyang Shua had his own strategic considerations when choosing the locations of the 3 subsidiary territories, Beihai County, Pool Town and Friendship Town. However, Ouyang Shua was not prepared to do so for the second-level subsidiary territory. He had to wait until the territory reached a certain scale before building the second-level subsidiary territory. Subsidiary territories could not be developed endlessly. The second-level subsidiary territory would be the limit. In other words, the territory could only develop 9 more subsidiary territories in the future. Otherwise, Ouyang Shua would not have thought of building settlements to divert the population and develop the land. The fundamental difference between subsidiary territories and settlements was that subsidiary territories could grow and could be continuously upgraded. New refugees would spawn every day. As for the settlement, it would be how it was when it was built. Population growth could only be achieved through the reproduction of descendants. Similarly, if the territory of other players was attacked and occupied, the territory would lose its most important growth potential and become a large settlement. The territory's teleportation portal would also disappear automatically. This was also the reason why Ouyang Shua did not go on an expedition to destroy other players' territories. Not to mention that he would have to mobilize a large number of troops. He would also have to face constant harassment from bandits along the way. Even if he managed to conquer the territory, he would not be able to get anything other than a few people. It was not worth it. The population captured by the surrounding village-level territories was not even comparable to the mountain barbarian tribes or the bandit camp. It was not a wise move. Needless to say, the captive population could only be of use to some commoners. Those special geniuses with a certain level were loyal to their original lord, so it wasn't easy to recruit them for one's own use. To be continued. Chapter 178. P.S. My monthly votes broke 400 last night. I updated it in the morning. Ouyang Shua's strategy for the surrounding territories could be summed up as Gu rearing. Ouyang Shua had long since regarded Lianzhou Basin as his. He would not allow anyone to touch it. The other player territories in Lianzhou Basin were not on the same level as Shanghai County. Since conquering other players' territories would cause them to lose their most important growth potential, Ouyang Shua was not in a hurry. He waited for these territories to develop on their own. These territories were like blood-generating machines that Ouyang Shua had set up. These territories were like blood-generating machines that Ouyang Shua had set up, continuously bringing refugees to Lianzhou Basin. Ouyang Shua would only make a move when these territories bordered Shanhai County and could spy on Shanhai County's secret. He would cleanly clear them out of Lianzhou Basin. To protect Shanhai County's secrets, Ouyang Shua had to create a vacuum between Shanhai County and the other players' territories to prevent the infiltration of other players' territories. This vacuum was like a container for goo rearing, blocking the sight of the goo worms and their owners. Of course, to be a goo rearer, one had to possess absolute strength and powerful goo rearing method. Otherwise, not only would one be nurturing a tiger, but one might also die from the backlash of the goo worms. At the very least, the newly established Heavenly Saber Union would not agree to Ouyang Shua being a goo rearer in Lianzhou Basin. Without a doubt, Ouyang Shua had once again rejected Beihai County's application to build a subsidiary territory. As for the financial allocation that Beihai County had applied for to build the city walls, they could only obtain the profits from the Wolf Mountain Mine and the Northern Twilight Salt Field in the first half of June. Shanhai County was making money fast and spending it even faster. Ouyang Shua wrote his opinion in red ink on Gu Xiuwen's official letter. The amount of the financial allocation was set at 500 gold coins, and Beihai County would handle the rest. Following this, Clerk Bai Nanpu would circulate the letter to the relevant departments according to Ouyang Shua's comments and hand it over to the director or bureau chief to handle. Now, Ouyang Shua no longer needed to run to his subordinates' offices or call them over to his office to give instructions. At the county level, Ouyang Shua was putting in a lot of effort to implement a more standardized and orderly administrative system, and to standardize the process of handling affairs. Take this matter for example. After Ouyang Shua had commented, Bai Nanpu had passed on Ouyang Shua's opinion to Finance Director Cui Yingyu. Cui Yingyu would naturally arrange for people to collect the income from the first half of June before allocating funds to Beihai County. After settling the matters in Beihai County, Ouyang Shua picked up the official letter sent by Zhao Dexian, the chief official of Pool Town. In his official letter, Zhao Dexian mentioned that the construction of the mountain barbarian settlement had already been completed, and that the small mountain barbarian tribe had already moved to the settlement. The relevant living materials and farming tools had also been delivered. Tian Wenjing still had a way. After the settlement was built, Tian Wenjing immediately organized the mountain barbarian tribes and arranged for a group of tribesmen to visit the settlement under the guise of a public tour. He saw the neat rows of green brick courtyards, the mountains of grain in the warehouse, the chickens, ducks, geese, and other poultry in the courtyards, the cages of vegetables, and the vast fields outside the settlement. All of this shocked the visiting barbarians. Compared to the bitter days in the mountains, the settlement in front of them was like a paradise on earth. Not only that, Zhao Dexian had fully understood Ouyang Shua's intentions. According to the standards of the mountain barbarians, under the guidance of the tribe's shamans, they had built a very imposing ancestral temple. All of this was very tempting. On the spot, 2 small tribes expressed their willingness to move to Shanhai County. In addition, there was a medium-sized tribe and 2 small tribes who said that they would discuss with their tribesmen if they wanted to leave the mountains and settle there. Such fruitful results made Ouyang Shua overjoyed. When the 2 small tribes left the mountains, the population of Pool Town would immediately exceed the upper limit of 10,000 people. It would become the second affiliated territory after Beihai County to be upgraded to a first-class county. Not only that, the increase in the labor force would also provide a strong guarantee for the grain production in the second half of the year. Ouyang Shua immediately commented on the official letter, requesting the finance department to allocate 1,000 gold coins as financial subsidy to Pool Town for the subsequent construction of the mountain barbarian settlement. Now it seemed that among the 3 affiliated territories, Friendship Town was the most backward. Although they had successfully built the market, the nomadic tribe valued their green beetle horses very much and were not willing to sell them easily. Moreover, the purchasing power of the green beetle horses was very strong. the last time the sky-rich tribe sold 200 green beetle horses, the resources they got in exchange were enough for their tribe to use for a long time. Moreover, it was summer and the grass was lush. It was a good time to graze. The herdsmen were not free and came to the market to trade. Therefore, the market was very quiet and did not meet the expectations of Friendship Town's governor Zhou Haichen. After reading Zhou Haichen's official letter, Ouyang Shuo was deep in thought. It seemed that if he wanted to pry open the giant rock that was the nomadic tribe, it would not be enough to just rely on trade. At the crucial moment, he had to launch a military operation. It would only be effective if he used both methods at the same time. With this thought in mind, Ouyang Shuo immediately sent official letters to the military department and the North City Barracks, requesting the North City Barracks to start recruiting soldiers. He wanted to expand the North City Barracks by another cavalry battalion within half a month. As for the headquarters, Ouyang Shuo did not plan to expand the army for the time being. This way, it would not be too much of a burden on the territory's finances. Considering that the Friendship Town's financial income was already meager, and it also had to support the City Defense Battalion and the North City Barracks, it was somewhat unable to bear the burden. Ouyang Shuo noted in the official letter that the financial department would give Friendship Town a financial subsidy of 1,000 gold coins, mainly for military expenses and the purchase of the green beetle horses. This way, the 3 subsidiary territories would consume 2,500 gold coins of financial subsidy. If it were not for the Wolf Mountain Mine and the North Twilight Salt Field, the 2 golden chickens that laid eggs, they would not be able to survive. Otherwise, how difficult would it be to run a territory well, especially a territory like Shanhai County that developed along with subsidiary territories? Nowadays, many of the level 1 towns and villages built earthen walls. The reason why they did not build stone walls like Shanhai County was not because they did not have the stones or the manpower, but because they did not have the money. After the refugees joined the territory, they were not slaves to the Lord, but people. When they first started their business, it was fine if they only took care of food. Firstly, there were few people, and secondly, the territory was poor, so the people could understand. However, after surviving the initial stage and being promoted to a level 1 town, if there was a lord who still wanted to continue squeezing the people, treating them as his personal property or even slaves, only giving them food to eat, clothes to wear, and wages, then it was very likely that the people would riot and kill the lord. In his previous life, there were cases where the lord was killed by his own NPCs and replaced. Of course, under normal circumstances, the refugees were very docile and honest. If they were not forced into a corner, they would not do such a thing. Otherwise, who would dare to be a lord if they rioted at the slightest provocation? By the time he finished processing the official letters from the 3 subsidiary territories, it was close to 6 in the evening. Ouyang Shuo got up, handed the official letters to the clerk, Bai Nanpu, and walked to the backyard. "Big brother, you got off work early." In the backyard, Binger was playing with a picture of the swallow with Zisu, which was the modern tangram. When she saw Ouyang Shuo, she said in surprise. This picture of the swallow was specially made by Lu Guangji for Binger. Binger had seen all kinds of toys in real life, but she was also very interested in this kind of interesting intellectual game from ancient times. She was also very talented, and even Zisu and Ban Xia could not beat her. Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, "Yes, Big Brother came in advance to see if our family's little pixie was obedient when Big Brother wasn't around." Binger put down the picture of the swallow and ran over to Ouyang Shuo to be carried. Ouyang Shuo carried her and walked to the dining hall. It was just in time for dinner. He did not know why, but after entering the game, Binger became more and more clingy and wanted to be carried at the slightest provocation. Ouyang Shuo guessed that the little girl must have seen Ouyang Shuo spoiling Yingyu and Qinger, especially Qinger. She felt that her big brother had been snatched away by others, so she constantly declared her sovereignty. Just like in real life, a long time ago there was a fight for the second child. The original only child, because they did not want their parents' love to be divided by their younger siblings, they did their best to oppose their parents having a second child. Ouyang Shua did not intervene, but just let it be. It was even more impossible for him to reduce his concern for Yu and Qing'er because of this, but he continued to fulfill his responsibility as the big brother. Ouyang Shua wanted Bing'er to know that love must be shared, and this was also a stage that she had to go through in her growth. After dinner, Ouyang Shua returned to his room and went offline. In real life, because there was only half a month left until the official migration on the 1st of July, the atmosphere was a little heavy. There was hesitation about the future, and also reluctance to leave Earth. According to news reports, some old people did not agree to migrate. First, there was still 10 years before the mutation on Earth, and it was still unknown whether they could live until then. Second, they did not want to suffer. Secondly, he did not want to go through the hassle. Not to mention the interstellar journey, even arriving at Hope Planet would be a hassle. Naturally, the federal government respected the choice of the citizens. Before leaving, they would leave enough living supplies and supporting life robots to take care of the lives of the citizens who were not willing to migrate. In addition, some artists were also quite reluctant to leave the works of art that could not be taken away, such as ancient architecture, murals, and some intangible cultural heritage. There was a crazy one who even declared that he wanted to live and die with art, and vowed not to migrate. For such people, the federal government did not need to be polite, and directly dragged them away. To be continued. Chapter 179. In reality, everyone's assets had already been calculated and turned into a pile of numbers. As for what these numbers were used for, the Federation government did not announce it. In the morning, Ouyang Shua called Sun Xiaoye to find out about her grandfather's gathering of scientists. According to Xiaoye, her grandfather had already contacted more than 20 scientists in the past half a month. They were temporarily staying in the Supreme Court under Xiaoye's guidance to familiarize them with the game environment. In addition, Ouyang Shua also asked Sun Xiaoye to do one more thing. That was to investigate the situation of the Chui family in the Supreme Court, especially the Chui family's reaction after Chui Inyo's disappearance. After the territory was promoted to a county, Ouyang Shua gradually had the confidence to contact the Chui family. While Sun Xiaoye was still in the Supreme Court, he wanted to use her as a middleman. In the afternoon, Song Jia called Ouyang Shua again. Ouyang Shua's commander's seal and letter were indeed effective and successfully moved the Song family. Song Jia and Ruan Ping's marriage had been postponed indefinitely. After Song Jia heard the news, she was extremely impressed with Ouyang Shua. In front of Ouyang Shua, she increasingly revealed her feminine side and often called him. At night, Ouyang Shua went online on time. After completing his routine training, Ouyang Shua did not stay in the Lord's mansion but headed towards the Eastern District. Although the city wall had not been completed in half a month, the county's layout had been updated ahead of time. The Eastern District was the exclusive area of the bow and crossbow workshop, armor workshop, weapons workshop, and alchemy workshop. When Ouyang Shua walked into the bow and crossbow workshop, the head of the bow and crossbow department and the workshop's supervisor, Wu Peng, came up and greeted him respectfully. Sir. In ancient society, skilled people, or craftsmen, had a very low social status. Therefore, these skilled people generally felt inferior and were very respectful towards Ouyang Shua, the Lord. This included the advanced carpenter Lu Guangji, the advanced winemaker Du Chun, the pottery master Zhu Yoji, and the others. All of them were like this. Perhaps only the head of the armor workshop, the blacksmith master Wang Zhuan, was an exception. Ouyang Shua nodded and asked, Director Wu, how many crossbows have been made? The structure of the crossbow could be divided into 3 parts: the arm, the bow, and the mechanism. The arm was generally made of wood, the bow was placed horizontally in front of the arm, and the mechanism was installed behind the arm. The mechanism that Ouyang Shua was referring to was the most important part of the crossbow, the mechanism. The crossbow mechanism was usually made of copper, but it could also be made of iron. It was installed in the gua of the crossbow. In front of the gua was a fong for the string, and behind the fong was a mountain gazing. There was a scale engraved on the mountain gazing, which was equivalent to the ruler on modern firearms. It was convenient to adjust the angle of the crossbow according to the distance of the target and increase the hit rate of the shot. Below the copper there was a hanging knife, a trigger used to shoot arrows. When the crossbow was launched, the string was first drawn, and the arrow was placed on the tooth of the crossbow. The arrow was placed in the arrow slot on the arm. After aiming through the mountain gazing, the hanging blade was pulled to make the tooth shrink downwards, and the string was unhooked. The arrow was then shot out at high speed using the kinetic energy formed by the rapid rebound of the drawn bowstring. 20 days ago, not long after he had been promoted in Shanhai County, Ouyang Shua suddenly paid a visit to the crossbow division's workshop and requested that they produce a batch of crossbow machines as fast as possible. The number of crossbow machines must be no less than 100,000. Although Division Chief Wu Peng was puzzled by the Lord's strange request, he didn't object out of his inferiority complex. Instead, he obediently carried out the request. Crossbow machines weren't like bows. The materials weren't difficult to find, and the requirements were very simple. They could be directly forged using iron ore. As for the production of crossbows, they were limited by the materials such as bowstring, cow horn, and cowhide. The production rate couldn't increase. As the crossbow division had to take care of the production of other crossbows, they could only forge an additional 500 crossbows a day on average. Up to now, they had forged exactly 10,000 crossbows. After listening to Wu Peng's report, Ouyang Shua wasn't satisfied. He said, "Division Chief Wu, we still have to speed up the progress. We can appropriately reduce the production of crossbows. After all, there isn't much demand for crossbows during this period of time." Understood. Wu Peng nodded in response. Ouyang Shua walked out of the crossbow division and entered the armor division's workshop. It had been 3.5 months since the establishment of the armor division. In early May, which was nearly 2 months after the establishment of the armor division delivered 50 sets of radiant armor to the cavalry camp and 100 sets of infantry armor to the infantry camp. These 2 batches of armor had played an important role in the Battle of Zhuolu, shocking everyone. Similarly, this batch of armor had suffered varying degrees of damage. The damaged armor was brought back to the main map and handed over to the armor division for repair. It had already been handed over to the cavalry camp and infantry camp. After 2 months of pain, the armor division's craftsmen finally began to take shape. Now the armor division had 1 master blacksmith, 4 advanced blacksmiths, 20 intermediate blacksmiths, and 150 beginner blacksmiths. In contrast, there was 1 master tailor consultant, 1 advanced tailor, 5 intermediate tailors, and 10 beginner tailors. With such a large group of craftsmen, their monthly salary was 340 gold coins. It exceeded the military expenditure of a battalion, and it didn't include the consultant's fee, muqingxi. After the pain, the results were obvious. From May onwards, the armor division could forge 150 sets of radiant armor and 200 sets of infantry armor every month. This was because the 2 batches of armor that were delivered in early May had been forged before that. Therefore, at the end of May, the armor division delivered another 150 sets of radiant armor to the vanguard camp and 200 sets of infantry armor to the mixed brigade's 1st Battalion. Based on this speed, the vanguard camp would be ready by the end of July. The mixed brigade's 1st Battalion would be ready by the end of June. As for the mixed brigade's 2nd Battalion, they would only be ready by the middle of September. In a short period of time, the armored division's production would not increase by much. Firstly, all the apprentices with the slightest aptitude in the territory had been searched. Now they could only slowly search among the newly spawned refugees. Secondly, the supply of iron ore had reached a bottleneck. The only mine in Shanghai County needed to supply weapons workshops to forge tang swords and lances, the crossbow division to forge crossbows and arrows, and the armor division to forge armor. It had already reached its limit. Even if they increased the number of miners, it would be useless. This was because the territory was only so big and could not be expanded. The only way was to find a new iron mine in the territory. After walking out of the armor division, Ouyang Shuo returned to the Lord's mansion and continued to deal with government affairs. In the following week, Feng Qingyang's Swordsman Town and Dichen's Handan Town were promoted to first-class counties. It was especially difficult for Handan Town to rise again in such a short period of time after its failure. In this way, China had a total of 7 prefecture-level territories. There were only 3 places left for the top 10. It was still unknown who would emerge victorious. Whether it was Xiongba's Tyrant Town, Military Kill Ripper's Azura Town, Drifting Fantasy's Fallen Leaves Town, Tao Wu's Hardstone Town, or even Dragon Seeking Town, they all had a chance. These 5 territories belonged to the 3rd tier. Compared to the 1st tier Shanghai County, the 2nd tier Danyang County, Luofeng County, Red Blood County, Lingxi County, Jiansha County, and Handan County were a step behind. They might not have the confidence to apply for promotion in a short period of time. Especially Hardstone Town and Dragon Seeking Town, they did not even meet the basic requirement. Military Kill Ripper's decline was within Ouyang Shuo's expectations. In his previous life, Military Kill Ripper was the weakest of the 6 tyrants of Handan. This was because the power that Military Kill Ripper represented had a natural flaw. They were a group that wandered in the gray area. Once their assets were frozen in reality, the nobles that they were on good terms with would no longer care about them. Then, they were like a chamber pot that was abandoned after it was no longer needed. These people were naturally good at fighting and fighting. However, they were still lacking when it came to managing a territory. In this week, Pool Town became the brightest spot in the entire territory. There was a middle-sized tribe and 4 small-sized tribes that had settled in Pool Town. This meant that the 3 tribes that were hesitating previously had all decided to leave the mountain. In addition to the initial small-sized tribe, Pool Town had an additional 14,000 people in an instant. In the southern region, of the mountain barbarian tribes that had cooperated with Shanghai County, only 2 middle-sized tribes and 4 small-sized tribes were left in the mountains, including the Xian Niao tribe. Other than the Xian Niao tribe, and the 3 small-sized tribes that relied on the Wolf Mountain mine, the remaining middle-sized and small-sized tribes were all stubborn. It would be difficult to convince them to leave the mountain in a short period of time. The arrival of the mountain barbarians allowed the population of Pool Town to exceed 20,000 people. It was directly upgraded by 2 levels and was promoted to a second-class county. Zhao Dexian was also naturally appointed as the county magistrate of Pool District. The ambitious Zhao Dexian threw out a plan for 400,000 mu of farmland. In Zhao Dexian's plan, Pool District would rush to open up 380,000 mu of farmland before August, increasing the size of the farmland in Pool District to 400,000 mu. Based on an average of 10 mu of land per person, 400,000 mu would require 40,000 farmers to work. At the very most, there were less than 20,000 farmers in Pool District. Moreover, more than half of them were farmers like the mountain barbarians who were new to farming. Excluding the elderly and children, the actual labor force would be even smaller. Looking at it, the target of 400,000 mu seemed to be a little reckless and exaggerated. In reality, Zhao Dexian had his own plans. Pool District was using a silver-level village creation token, which increased the number of refugees attracted by 40%. This meant that 280 refugees could be spawned every day at the county level, and 8,400 refugees could be spawned every month. There was still more than a month before the second rice harvest at the beginning of August. In other words, as long as they could get through this difficult period of 1.5 months, the population of Pool District would exceed the 40,000 mark by mid-September. From Zhao Dexian's point of view, it was worth it to work a little harder at the beginning in exchange for half a year's harvest. Since Zhao Dexian had calculated it so clearly, Ouyang Shuo had no reason to disagree. To be continued. Chapter 180. On the 24th day of the 6th month of the first year of Gaia, the second bandit suppression operation in Shanhai County finally came to an end. Compared to the first time, the second bandit suppression operation was 3 times larger, so the harvest was naturally more bountiful. They obtained a total of 5,400 gold coins, 5,500 captives, and a large amount of rations, supplies, and weapons. Most importantly, they were lucky enough to obtain a technical manual from this bandit extermination mission. A ladder manufacturing technique manual. After use, the user will automatically master the ladder manufacturing technique. Ouyang Shuo had witnessed the power of the ladder when the bandits attacked the city. He naturally coveted such a powerful siege weapon. Ouyang Shuo handed the ladder manufacturing manual to the Combat Readiness Division, which was responsible for organizing the craftsmen to study it and create a finished product as soon as possible. Ouyang Shuo did not forget that there was still a group of bandits waiting for him to take care of in the southern pass. The latter was undoubtedly a godsend. Otherwise, there was really no other way to deal with the impregnable pass. According to Shi Wansui, they encountered a tough nut to crack in this operation. It was a high-level bandit camp with more than 3,000 bandits. Among them, there were more than 500 elite bandits and 1,500 ordinary bandits. Fortunately, the mixed brigade, which had been established for more than a month, had experienced many battles and accumulated rich experience in fighting bandits. The various battalions cooperated well with each other. In addition to the 1st Battalion of the Mixed Brigade, which was the trump card at the front, there were already 4 platoons equipped with infantry armor. Their defense was astonishing, like an iron bucket. They finally took down the bandit camp without any mishap. In this battle alone, the Mixed Brigade lost more than 100 people. One had to know that the Mixed Brigade only lost a total of 300 people in the 2 large-scale bandit suppression operations. It could be seen how intense the battle was back then. In fact, at the county level, the bandits basically could not pose too much of a threat to the territory. This was because the size of the bandits was limited. The high-level bandit camp was already the limit. In the wilderness, there were very few targets that could be plundered. When a large number of bandits gathered together, they could only starve. Facing a well-equipped regular army like the Mixed Brigade, the bandit camp could not fight back. It was precisely because of this that Ouyang Shuo did not participate in the bandit suppression operations after being promoted to a county level. He directly left it to Shi Wansui to handle. Ouyang Shuo sent the remaining 4,500 captives to Friendship Town to help Friendship Town rise to the rank of a Class 1 county, with the exception of 1,000 who were selected to join the reserve forces. Among the 3 subsidiary territories, Friendship Town was the slowest to develop. Ouyang Shuo really couldn't bear to see this happen, nor was he willing to favor one over the other. Zhou Haichen was appointed as the county magistrate. Zhou Haichen was naturally moved to tears by the Lord's trust. Of the 3 subsidiary territories, he was the only one who did nothing, so he naturally felt guilty and felt that he had let the Lord down. Ouyang Shuo didn't say anything and just asked him to continue diligently. At the same time, Ouyang Shuo ordered Lei Sun, who was in charge of gathering information about the nomadic tribes, to speed up the process of gathering information. At the same time, he sent a letter to Sun Tingjiao, who had just been promoted to the 2nd Battalion of the Vanguard Battalion, asking him to step up the training of the new recruits and ensure that the newly formed cavalry battalion could be put to use at any time. Ouyang Shuo had intentionally allowed Sun Tingjiao to take part in the bandit suppression operation that had just ended. He was consciously tempering the troops and striving to form a fighting force as soon as possible. Generally speaking, a battalion of soldiers had to reach the 5th rank on average to be considered qualified. Otherwise, in Ouyang Shuo's eyes, those below the 5th rank were just recruit. At the same time, in order to strengthen the 2nd Battalion of the Vanguard Battalion, after a month of observation, Ouyang Shuo appointed the 2nd leader of the Shadow Cavalry, who had been attacked by the bandits, as the 2nd Battalion's deputy battalion commander. Although the Shadow Cavalry had led 1,000 cavalrymen when the bandits attacked the city, he was now only a deputy battalion commander. It seemed like he had been demoted by 2 ranks. But for a surrendered general, this was already considered preferential treatment. Of course, on the other hand, it was also because Sun Tingjiao's ability wasn't inferior to the Shadow Cavalry's. In addition, with his qualifications, Sun Tingjiao would naturally be promoted first. Moreover, according to the pace of Shanhai County's army expansion, as long as the Shadow Cavalry performed outstandingly, were loyal, and at the same time made contributions to Shanhai County, it was only a matter of time before they were promoted to battalion commander. The 5,400 gold coins seized from the bandits, plus the 7,600 gold coins handed over from the Wolf Mountain Mine and the North Twilight Saltworks in the first half of June, amounted to a total of 13,000 gold coins. Among them, the financial subsidies allocated to the 3 subsidiary territories amounted to 2,500 gold coins, the architectural blueprints of the Level 2 county's basic buildings cost 2,000 gold coins, the North Sea Fleet's 3rd Battalion and the 2nd Cavalry Battalion of the North City Barracks cost 1,250 gold coins, and the Mixed Brigade's casualties cost 250 gold coins to replenish, leaving him with 7,000 gold coins. Ouyang Shuo didn't deal with the remaining 7,000 gold coins immediately. Instead, he planned to wait until the second half of June's earnings were tabulated before he made a unified arrangement. In the afternoon, Shanhai County's conference hall. After the bandits' suppression, Ouyang Shuo officially started to attack the surrounding players' territories. According to the military office's deployment, this operation was codenamed Lightning. It was to quickly uproot a total of 8 players' territories on the east and west sides with lightning speed. For this, Shanhai County didn't hesitate to mobilize the army. Operation Lightning was divided into 2 routes, east and west, and they moved together. There were only 3 players' territories on the east route. They were under the command of Shanhai County's City Defense Camp, Pool Water County's City Defense Camp, Friendship County's City Defense Camp, and the 2nd Vanguard Battalion. The military office's Go Hongliang was the commander of the East Route. The 4 battalion commanders of the East Route were not troublemakers, and Go Hongliang would be able to command them with ease. Aside from this, Ouyang Shuo also wanted to use this opportunity to train the city defense camp's coordination and long-distance marching ability. Given Shanhai County's development, passively defending was not Ouyang Shuo's goal. Taking the initiative to attack was his style. Hence, Ouyang Shuo didn't want the city defense camp to stay in the city, slowly deteriorating and losing their combat strength. He needed to pull them out from time to time and throw them into actual combat to maintain their morale and bravery. There were 5 players' territories on the west route, and the Mixed Brigade was in charge of them. Shi Wansui was the commander of the west route. According to the military office's feedback, the target territory did not have any decent city walls. Hence, Ouyang Shuo didn't mobilize the Divine Strategy Battalion this time. This time, Shanhai County mobilized all its troops, and the scale of this operation was even greater than when they were suppressing bandits. However, their target was a level 3 village that was not even as strong as a high-level bandit camp. Naturally, there were other considerations. Speed was the core of this lightning-fast operation. They wanted to take down 8 territories at the same time, catching the other party off guard. Before they set off, Ouyang Shuo specifically instructed them not to delay the other party after they arrived at the other party's village. Instead, they should charge straight in and take down the other party's residence to complete the occupation mission. After a player's territory was occupied, all the players in the territory would automatically be teleported to the nearby system capital city. Naturally, the players in Lianzhou Basin would be teleported to Dali. If the players died during the occupation, they would revive at the reincarnation hall in the system capital city. Hence, to resolve the battle quickly and efficiently, the armies from the east and west would set off the next morning. They would march to the borders of the territories and set up camp. The next morning, they would charge into the other party's territory, catching them off guard. At that time, many players might not even be online and wouldn't know who the enemy was. This was the effect Ouyang Shuo wanted. If these 8 territories knew that Shanhai County was the one who destroyed them, they would announce it on the forum. It would definitely cause the other lords of Lianzhou Basin to band together. This was not an outcome that Ouyang Shuo wanted to see. Only when they didn't know who the enemy was, would the feudal lords suspect each other and not point their fingers at Shanhai County. Ouyang Shuo was raising venomous insects, but he didn't want the venomous insects to band together. Raising venomous insects meant letting the venomous insects kill each other, leaving behind the strongest one. After deciding on the strategy, the battalions returned to their camps to prepare for tomorrow's supplies. On the 25th of June, the army set off. The mixed brigades set off from the west camp, heading to the westernmost side of the territory. The 3 city defense battalions and the 2nd Battalion of the Vanguard Battalion set off from their respective camps, heading to Poolwater County first before heading to the easternmost side of the territory together. On the 26th of June, 5 o'clock in the morning. For the East Camp, Go Hongliang's strategy was for the 3 city defense battalions to each take down a level 3 village. The cavalry battalion would act as a mobile unit and provide support from the middle. For the West Camp, Shi Wansui didn't assign tasks according to the battalions. The battalions of the mixed brigade were all specialized units. He couldn't let the archer battalion move alone. For this reason, Shi Wansui split up the 5 battalions and reorganized them according to the squadrons. He formed 5 mixed battalions that were similar to the city defense battalions, consisting of 2 sword and shield soldiers, 1 cavalry, 1 spear soldier, and 1 archer soldier. The level 3 village's garrison only had about 100 people, at most 200 people. Facing a battalion of soldiers without any reliable fortifications, coupled with a surprise attack, there was no reason for them to fail. At 5:30 in the morning, the east and west camps, a total of 4,000 soldiers from 8 battalions, were like 8 sharp sabers. Under the guidance of the spies from the Military Intelligence Division, they were like precise scalpels, rapidly stabbing into the enemy's hinterland. Level 3 villages had arrow towers, and there were stone watchtowers on the periphery. Although it was early in the morning, the attacking troops still had nowhere to hide. At this time, the battalions didn't think about hiding their track. The wooden gate of the village was directly smashed open by the barbarian sword and shield soldiers. The follow-up troops followed closely behind, heading straight for the enemy's residence. At this time, the territory's garrison troops, who reacted quickly, had already rushed out from their camps, ready to intercept. When 2 sides met, the strongest would win. The scattered garrison troops couldn't stop the advance of the army and were torn into pieces. The alerted villagers saw that their sons were defeated so quickly, so they followed, not daring to advance. They could only watch as the enemy charged into the residence and occupied the territory. After the territory was occupied, the NPC natives naturally became captive. To be continued. Chapter 181. The lightning-fast operation was unexpectedly smooth, and there was almost no resistance. After the occupation was completed, the soldiers gathered the villagers together and arranged for them to take all the supplies from the village and escort them back to Shanhai County. As the villages were located outside of Shanhai County, Ouyang Shua planned to leave them empty for the time being. When the area of the territory was expanded, these empty villages could be used as ready-made settlements. At that time, the farmers could be moved to the villages to open up farmland and plant rice. Gradually, the villages would develop into natural villages under Shanhai County, and the vast land would not be abandoned. June 26, 5:30 in the afternoon. The Eastern and Western armies escorted a total of 7,200 captives and a large amount of supplies back to Shanhai County. As it was late, Ouyang Shua did not let the captives enter the city. Instead, he arranged for them to stay outside the city for the night. Since it was summer, the night was not cold, and they had tents, so it was not too bad for them. Ouyang Shua was not interested in keeping the supplies they brought, so he distributed them to the villagers. In this way, they would not have too much resistance against Shanhai County. The next day, the Household Registration Department started work. The Household Registration Department had formed a very complete process for the placement of refugees and captives. The Household Registration Department had set up fixed reception points at the north and west gates to receive the refugees that came in every day. After the refugees arrived, the Household Registration Department officials began to register them one by one and issued them a Shanhai County Household Register. Then, the Household Registration Department officials distributed the refugees according to their registered occupation. Farmers, fruit farmers, miners, lumberjacks, breeders, and other people who were suitable for living in the settlements outside the city were directly distributed to the corresponding settlements after receiving the basic welfare. After arriving at the settlement, Yuri was responsible for arranging their daily lives. The Agriculture Department and the Supplies Department had staff to assist the Household Registration Department at the reception points. Craftsmen, tailors, merchants, and other skilled people were sent to the post house in the city to stay temporarily, and the post house would take care of their food and lodging. The Household Registration Department would issue a letter of introduction according to their occupation. With the letter of introduction issued by the Household Registration Department, the refugees could go to the major workshops, shops, or construction sites in the city to find a suitable job. After finding a job, the refugees had to move out of the post house and rent a house in the residential area. In the residential area, the construction department built a large number of resettlement houses for the refugees to rent. Once they had a fixed residence, they could go to the Supplies Reserve Department to receive their basic benefits. After working for a while and settling down, he had a considerable amount of savings. At that time, they could go to the Bank of the Four Seas and apply for a loan to buy the house they were renting. When he had extra money, he could go to the farmer's market and buy some chickens, ducks, and geese to raise in the yard. Those who were more diligent could also buy vegetable seeds or seedlings and plant vegetables in the yard. If they were a little richer, they could go to a clothing workshop to buy new clothes, go to a jewelry shop to buy jewelry for their wives, and even occasionally go to a restaurant to eat at a restaurant, go to a tea house to drink tea, go to a theater to watch a play and listen to a song. Most of the refugees stopped here. Next, they just had to live a good life. As a young man, he had to think about his marriage, ask a matchmaker to find a wife for him, get married, and have children. As for military generals, scholars, and special talents needed to upgrade the territory, they would be introduced by the Household Department officials at the reception area to the Household Department head Duquan. Special talents below the gold rank would be introduced by Duquan to the corresponding division head based on their occupation. The division head would arrange for them to work in the army or in various departments. Only the most special talents could get Du Quan's recommendation and be directly recommended to the Lord Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua would personally arrange for them to work. Similarly, the recruitment work was taken over by the military department. The barracks did not have the right to recruit people. The military department would put up recruitment notices at the city gates and various settlements. This way, if the refugees felt that they were suitable to join the army, they could give up their temporary jobs and join the barrack. The household department had already carried out this entire process very smoothly. Even if 7,200 people suddenly came today, it was just a matter of sending more people. Of course, this batch of captives was a little special, because among them, there were some who were loyal to the original lord. Most of them were core members of the original village, either scholars or military generals. Ouyang Shua did not hesitate to deal with this group of people. All the military generals were dismissed and reduced to platoon leaders, and were assigned to various battalions. All the scholars were reduced to basic level clerks, and were sent to 3 subsidiary territories by Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua's treatment of the scholars had a deeper meaning. The county magistrates of the subsidiary territories were all natives. Towards the scholars who were captured, they did not have much resistance. At the same time, it was also an opportunity to enrich the government agencies of the subsidiary territories, strengthen their allocation, and improve administrative efficiency. Of course, this was also Ouyang Shua's test for the 3 county magistrates. He wanted to see if they could subdue this batch of scholars. As expected, there was not a single historical figure among this batch of captives. The highest-ranked ones were only 2 elementary generals and 1 elementary scholar. That was it. After dealing with the matter of the captives, Ouyang Shua began to deal with the problem of funds. The 7,600 gold coins of income for the second half of June had already been collected. Ouyang Shua now had 14,600 gold coins in his hands, of which 4,600 gold coins were directly allocated to the finance department for the territory's financial expenses. Ouyang Shua went to the high-class market with 10,000 gold coins in his pocket. The market had already been moved to the west side of the square in front of the Lord's mansion. It was opposite the location of the teleportation array. It was very convenient to go there. Speaking of which, Ouyang Shua rarely went to the market. This was because Shanhai County had basically achieved self-sufficiency. Other than building blueprints, there were very few other things that he needed to purchase. This time, Ouyang Shua came to the market because after the immigration, the system would welcome a major update. During the system update, there would be new settings for the market. Ouyang Shua wanted to use his foresight to purchase some books in advance before the update. Ouyang Shua first searched for secret manuals. He bought all the remaining gold-level authentic secret manuals in the market. There were a total of 20 of them, and he spent 1,000 gold coins. In this way, Ouyang Shua bought a total of 120 gold-level authentic secret manuals. Unexpectedly, Ouyang Shua found another emperor-level technique. It was the famous 9-in manual, and it was priced at 1,500 gold coins. Ouyang Shua did not hesitate and immediately bought it. The 9-in manual was not very useful to Ouyang Shua, but to Song Jia it was a treasure. Song Jia's dream was to establish a sect in the game and become a hero of the generation. The 9-in manual was the best technique for her sect. Subsequently, Ouyang Shua spent 500 gold coins to buy a military ration pill manufacturing technique manual and a military tent manufacturing technique manual. Military ration pills and military tents were logistical tools that would consume a lot of resources in the future. Ouyang Shua was prepared to be self-sufficient. More importantly, military resources such as military ration pills, military tents, fierce fire oil, and fierce fire oil tanks would be banned after the system update. Therefore, Ouyang Shua spent 1,000 gold coins to buy 100,000 barrels of fierce fire oil. This batch of fierce fire oil was enough to last Shanhai County for 10 years. They would be transported by the combat division to the foot of the Rocky Mountain Range, where they would be stored in a huge cave. They would be guarded by professionals, and no one would be allowed to go near them. Other than military resources, Ouyang Shua was also prepared to buy a batch of food. Although rice could be harvested in Pool Water County and Yi County by the end of July. However, Ouyang Shua calculated that the territory would still lack food for the second half of the year. The fertile farmland in Pool Water County could produce 350 units of food per mu. 20,000 mu of fertile farmland could produce a total of 7 million units of food. The farmland in Yi County could produce 320 units of food per mu. 20,000 mu of fertile farmland could produce 4 million units of food. In total, 4 million units of food could be harvested. The second crop of rice would be harvested at the end of October. There were still 4 months left. The total population of Shanhai County, including the 3 affiliated territories, was close to 80,000. It was still increasing at the rate of 1,140 people every day. Based on the minimum standard of 1 unit of food per person per day, at the end of October, at least 8 million units of food would be consumed. In addition to the double consumption of the military, the consumption of wine, and the consumption of fodder, the total consumption of food would not be less than 20 million units. All of this did not include the consumption of food due to the sudden increase in the population due to the captives or mountain barbarians settling down the mountains. This was a situation that was bound to happen. He had to consider it. All things considered, the first crop of food would only be enough for slightly more than half of the territory. This was under the condition that the farmers would sell all the food they harvested. After the system update, the material trading platform would be cancelled. If the territorial lords wanted to purchase food, they could only do it through the real-time auction platform or the negotiation platform. They could purchase from merchants one by one. If the merchants found out about the food crisis in the territory, the price of food would definitely rise. Merchants would not be like the system, which would maintain a stable price forever. Therefore, the remaining 6,000 gold coins were all used by Ouyang Shua to purchase food. A total of 6 million units of food were purchased. After the upgrade, half of the county-level granary was filled. Although there was still a gap in the purchased food, this gap could be filled before the price of food increased. After all, July was the harvest season. There would not be a shortage of food in the territory. At this point, Ouyang Shua had spent 10,000 gold coins to once again establish a solid material foundation for the development of Shanhai County. Ouyang Shua remembered that the food crisis in the second half of the year would be a cruel test for the territory. To be continued. Chapter 182. June 28. The migration in the real world had entered the final sprint stage. All kinds of artworks, unique books, and biological specimens from Earth had already been transported to individual spaceships. Other than that, a variety of production lines and intelligent robots were also transported onto the spaceship to ensure that they could be assembled and produced immediately upon arrival on Hope Planet. In fact, in the second year after the explorer discovered Planet Hope, which was the year 2171, the federal government had formed an expedition team to Planet Hope to conduct preliminary exploration work. The expedition team sailed for a full 10 years before they reached Hope Planet. Coupled with the time it took for the signal to be transmitted, it would only take the federal government a few years to get to know the basic situation of Planet Hope. Therefore, the transportation of the production lines was very targeted. As for the specific content, apart from the participants and the upper echelons of the Federation, it was strictly kept confidential. The spaceships responsible for transporting the migrants were already parked at all the major airports around the world. As the central city of Jiaozhou, there was an airport in the suburbs. Of course, Ouyang Shua had to rush to Shanghai first and meet up with his aunt before boarding the spaceship at the airport on the outskirts of Shanghai. Due to the lack of maintenance, The network signal had begun to become unstable. In the morning, Ouyang Shua called Sun Xiaoya for the last time to inquire about the situation of the Chui family in Dali. The Chui family is very famous in Dali. It is a very large comprehensive business group. Its business covers almost all industries, and its core business is silverware and bank. Sun Xiaoya said on the phone, "It is indeed as you said, the eldest daughter of the Chui family, Chui Yingyu, encountered a robber during a business trip half a year ago and unfortunately disappeared. After such a long time, the Chui family has already determined that Chui Yingyu is dead." Ouyang Shua nodded and said, "Little Yu, to tell you the truth, Chui Yingyu is in my territory. After going online, I will send you a token of Chui Yingyu. You can use this token to contact the Chui family." Sun Xiaoya suddenly understood. "So that's how it is. Alright, leave this matter to me." "Thank you." Ouyang Shua hung up the phone, turned on his optical computer, and logged into the game forums. The lightning-fast operation launched by Shanhai County was exposed in the forum on the same day. The 8 victims lamented on the forum about how their territories were not destroyed. In fact, there wasn't much to say, because they didn't even see who the enemy was. After going online, he was directly teleported to the Supreme Court. Not counting the attacks from monsters and bandits, this should be the first instance of a territory being destroyed in the China region. Naturally, it attracted a lot of attention, especially a few days before the immigration. At this special point in time, it was even more suspicious. Although they did not know who the enemy was, Shanhai County was still the biggest suspect. The reason was simple. First, Shanhai County was the strongest in the Lianzhou Basin. It was completely capable of conquering 8 territories at the same time. Secondly, Shanhai County had just been promoted to a second-class county, and its territory had expanded rapidly. Naturally, it was the biggest suspect. In addition, the members of the Heavenly Blade Alliance added fuel to the fire. For a time, Shanhai County was in the eye of the storm. Ouyang Shua, on the other hand, was calm and composed. He neither admitted nor denied it. If someone stood out to criticize Ouyang Shua, then that person would be a real fool. The theme of Earth on Lu was territorial hegemony. There was no justice or injustice in territorial wars. It was just the law of the jungle. Fortunately, there were no such fools. Even the 8 victims could only vent on the forum. In the end, they could only admit that they were unlucky. In fact, the focus of everyone's attention was on Shanhai County's sudden action at this critical juncture. They were the first to provoke a territorial war. What was their intention? Was it a declaration of strength or a statement of position? If it was a declaration of strength, Shanhai County's strength had already been recognized by the players in the China region. There was no need to reiterate it. Bai Xiaoxing suggested that Shanhai County's action was actually a great help to the players. In fact, he said that Has No Clothes was warning the rookies who had just entered the game that although the players' territories were free, they were not safe. They could be attacked at any time. It was better to stay in the system's royal city. At least, there was no need to worry about safety. Bai Xiaoxing's argument was supported by many people. Many rookies who had just entered the game began to reconsider the pros and cons of joining the players' territories. During the process of weighing the pros and cons, another argument was thrown out. Someone suggested that there was actually a way to get the best of both worlds. That was to join a strong territory, such as one of the top 10 territories in the China region. This way, there would be fewer restrictions and there would be a guarantee of safety. Ouyang Shua was silent. He did not know if this argument was just a coincidence or if someone was adding fuel to the fire behind the scenes. It was most likely Lord Chunshan and the others. The migration in the real world had suddenly shaved away their foundation. At this time, Lord Chunshan and the others naturally hoped to use the advantages they had obtained in the early stages to attract enough outstanding players to settle in their territories. This would offset the weakening in the real world. Although Shanghai County had indirectly benefited from this argument, Ouyang Shuo did not feel that there was anything to be happy about. From the beginning of the establishment of the territory, he had already decided that the territory would not accept players on a large scale. In the afternoon, Ouyang Shuo brought Binger to the cemetery to sweep his parents' graves for the last time. It was also a farewell. The next morning, Ouyang Shuo would bring Binger to Magic City to meet up with his aunt. There were too many migrants. There were no less than 2.4 million people in Magic City alone. For this reason, the federal government had parked 2 large spaceships at Magic City's spaceport. Each spaceship could carry 1.2 million passengers. Of course, these spaceships had been specially modified. Every passenger occupied a very small space. Basically, it was just enough to fit a gaming capsule. Before boarding the spaceship, the passengers had to enter the gaming capsule in advance. Then, the robots would send the gaming capsule to the designated location. After the spaceship took off, the gaming capsule would automatically enter hibernation mode. The players' bodies in the real world would be completely frozen until they reached the destination. After returning from the cemetery, Ouyang Shuo started to pack his luggage with Binger. In fact, he was considering the most precious and memorable items. The other daily necessities would be distributed by the federal government. In the end, Ouyang Shuo chose a photo frame. It was a family photo taken when his parents were still alive. At that time, Binger was still a little girl. She had been very cute since she was young. As for Binger, she chose a doll. The doll was a little shabby, but Binger treasured it because it was a birthday gift from her father. At night, Ouyang Shuo logged into the game as usual. During breakfast, Ouyang Shuo looked at Ying Yu and said, "You come to my office in the morning. I have something to discuss with you." "Okay." Ying Yu thought it was work-related and did not mind. At 10 in the morning, Ying Yu came to Ouyang Shuo's office. Ouyang Shuo invited Ying Yu to sit down. He organized his words in his mind and said, You know that I'm not the same as you. I have some special methods to contact the outside world." Ying Yu nodded and said, "I know. I have a friend in the Supreme Court. 2 days ago, I asked her to inquire about your family's situation," Ouyang Shuo continued. Ying Yu's heart suddenly twitched. She said with difficulty, "And then? Did my family think that I died in the wilderness?" Ouyang Shuo nodded. "That's right. Don't be sad. This is also human nature. After all, under those circumstances, there was no news from you for half a year. It's normal for them to make such a judgment. Big brother, you don't have to comfort me. I understand." And you tried hard to calm her emotions. "How about this, In order for my friend to contact your family, I need a keepsake from you. It would be best if you can attach a letter in your own hand. This is my plan. When your family is sure that you're still alive, we can use the high-class markets negotiation platform to contact the Chui family. What do you think?" Ouyang Shuo pretended to be calm. In fact, Ouyang Shuo had his own selfish reasons for saying this. If Ouyang Shuo was willing, he could have found a territory near the Supreme Court and formed an alliance with them after opening the teleportation array. He would then have Ying Yu teleport to this territory and have the territory arrange troops to escort Ying Yu all the way to Dali so that she could reunite with her family. Ouyang Shuo naturally had his own reasons for not doing this. First, he didn't want to treat the alliance as a game. The members of the Shanghai Alliance had strict selection criteria. Although Baihua's Lingxi County was in Yunnan Province, it was near Kunming. After expanding the game map by 10 times, Kunming was more than 3,000 kilometers away from Dali. Even with the speed of the Cyan Beetle horse, it would take at least 2 months to get there. It was too unrealistic to rush to Dali from Lingxi County. Second, Ouyang Shuo really couldn't bear for Ying Yu to leave Shanghai County. Putting aside the relationship between them, the current Shanghai County couldn't do without her as the head of the finance department. In the future, when Shanghai County was filled with talents, Ouyang Shuo would consider arranging for Yingyu to return to the family. Sometimes, Ouyang Shuo also felt that his actions were a little despicable. He had completely betrayed the trust Yingyu had in him. A long time ago, he had boasted shamelessly that he would definitely escort Yingyu back to Dali when the time was right. How shameless! However, this was the price one had to pay in order to wield power. As a leader, the interests of his territory were his first consideration. Perhaps, only Binger was the most untouchable minefield in Ouyang Shuo's heart. There would be no conflict of interests there. Actually, Yingyu was already satisfied as long as she could get in touch with her family. The platform that Shanghai County provided for Yingyu was also a fortuitous encounter. I think it's a good idea. I'll write the letter this afternoon and hand it to you, big brother, Yingyu said. Good. Ouyang Shuo said expressionlessly. To be continued. Chapter 183. In the afternoon, Ouyang Shuo mailed the token and letter that Yingyu had given him to Sun Xiao. Then, Ouyang Shuo walked out of the mansion and began the inspection and acceptance of the second city wall of Shanghai County under the company of the Director of Construction, Zhao Duong. After 40 days, the second city wall was finally completed. The city gate, the tower, the arrow tower, and the other facilities were all completed and ready for use. This was because the two city walls did not form the standard Hui shape. Instead, the Ko shape on the outside was aligned with the Ko shape on the inside. Therefore, the east and west gates of the second city wall were aligned with the north gate of the first city wall. They were completely staggered from the east and west gates of the first city wall to increase their defensive capabilities. As for the north gate, although it was on the same central axis, due to the existence of the inner city river, the two north gates were 3 kilometers apart. Therefore, in terms of defense, the north gate was not inferior to the east gate and the west gate. When Sun Xiaoye and the rest arrived in July, they would see a brand new Shanghai County. It would be the largest city in the world so far. After returning to the mansion, Ouyang Shuo read in his office for a while. There were still many things that needed to be done in Ouyang Shuo's plan to upgrade to a level 2 county. However, as the immigration was approaching, Ouyang Shuo did not have the energy to start these plans before the immigration was completed. At 6 in the evening, Ouyang Shuo returned to the backyard and went offline with Binger. After coming out of the gaming capsule, the siblings had their last breakfast at home. Baby, do you remember what I said? Ouyang Shuo reminded her. Binger nodded hard and said in a crisp voice, Remember, don't mention anything about the game to anyone, including Auntie. Don't worry, I'm a good girl. Ouyang Shuo nodded and brought Binger out with their pathetically small luggage. They boarded the driverless air bus that was specially prepared by the Union government and went straight to Shanghai. As for their gaming capsules, they were sent directly to the Shanghai airport through the distribution channel. At 10 in the morning, Ouyang Shuo arrived in Shanghai and met up with his auntie. After a simple lunch at his auntie's house, they took the bus to the airport together. As there were many passengers, they did not wait until the 1st of July to board the ship together. Instead, they arranged for the passengers to board the ship from that day onward. Ouyang Shuo didn't want to stay in his aunt's house any longer, so he decided to board the ship today. Before departing, they had already changed into the spacesuits issued by the Federation government at their aunt's house. This type of spacesuit was actually very light. It was no different from sportswear. When they arrived at the airport, it was already overcrowded. Fortunately, there were troops maintaining order at the scene. Ouyang Shuo, Binger, Lin Jing, and Xie Xiyun lined up to board the ship. They waited in line until 5:30 p.m. before it was their turn to board the ship. Under the guidance of the robot, Ouyang Shuo brought Binger into his gaming cabin. Then, the robot was responsible for transporting the gaming cabin to the designated location. After entering the gaming cabin, Ouyang Shuo logged into the game. For a long time to come, he would have no contact with reality and would live completely in the game world. Ouyang Shua came out of his room and went to Binger's room. Zisu, the maid, lived in the compartment outside Binger's room. Ouyang Shua's arrival jolted Zisu awake. "Master?" Zisu was puzzled. Ouyang Shua nodded and said, "I came to see the 3rd Mississippi." At this time, Binger had already gotten up on her own. She ran out and said in a crisp voice, "Brother?" Ouyang Shua was afraid that Binger wouldn't be able to adapt, so he specially came to comfort her. Seeing that the little girl's mood was stable, he finally relaxed and said with a smile, "Darling, for a long time in the future, we will have to stay in the game world. Are you afraid?" "No, I'm here. Besides, Binger thinks this place is very good. I like it very much." The little girl was heartless. Perhaps she really didn't understand what interstellar migration meant. While the siblings were talking, Zisu had already left the room and went to the kitchen to prepare hot water for Binger to wash up. At the same time, she ordered the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Seeing that Binger was fine, Ouyang Shua returned to his room and washed up with Ban Xia's help. Then, he picked up his refined iron spear and began his unshakable morning training in the courtyard. After washing up, Binger stood in the corridor and watched her brother practice martial arts with great interest. This kind of morning training had become a daily routine for the siblings. At 10 a.m., Ouyang Shua arrived at the Lord's office on time. He ordered the clerk, by Nanpu, to call the chief of the War Readiness Division, Zhao Yufeng, over. After Zhao Yufeng came in, he seemed a little reserved. This chief of the War Readiness Division had been neglected by Ouyang Shua for a long time. He didn't know why Ouyang Shua summoned him this time. Ouyang Shua sat in the main seat and looked at the reserved Zhao Yufeng. He felt a little emotional. Half a year had passed, and the sand had been washed away. Zhao Yufeng, who originally looked smart, was embarrassed to take on such a big responsibility. The originally dull Zhao Duong managed the construction division in an orderly manner and was praised by Ouyang Shua many times. The original batch of elders in Shanghai village held important positions, but they had basically reached the limit of their abilities. Zhao Dexian, the former chief of Zhejiagu village, was already at his limit as the Pool District Magistrate. When the Pool District was promoted to a county, Ouyang Shua would definitely replace someone as the county magistrate. Zhao Diwang's position as the chief was the limit. At most, he would have the opportunity to seek for a position as the county magistrate. As for Zhao Yufeng, as the territory continued to be promoted, it was hard to say whether he could keep his position as the chief. An official was different from a general. Without the corresponding knowledge, it would be difficult to achieve great things by just relying on experience. Ouyang Shua passed the Military Ration Pill Manufacturing Technical Manual and Military Tent Manufacturing Technical Manual that he bought previously to Zhao Yufeng and said, "Chief Zhao, the War Readiness Division will be responsible for the production of military ration pills and military tents. In addition to the scaling ladders, the War Readiness Division will need to produce more and more war resources. The War Readiness Division can work with the Construction Division to build a military factory outside the city to produce military resources." "Yes," Zhao Yufeng replied respectfully. Ouyang Shua shook his head and said in a gentle tone, "Yufeng, you can't be like this. You don't have any drive. Where did the chief who dared to express his opinion go? I want to hear your opinion on the construction of the military factory, and not just be a yes-man." Zhao Yufeng was stunned. He felt a little emotional. This period of experience was also a test for his state of mind. If he could get through it, he might be able to rise from the ashes. Zhao Yufeng knew that this was the last chance His Excellency was giving him. If he couldn't grasp it, then he would really sink to the bottom. In fact, when he received the Scaling Ladder Manufacturing Technical Manual, Zhao Yufeng already had some ideas. This was because the manufacturing of the scaling ladders required a large workshop. After the redesign of the county, every area had its own clear function. Zhao Yufeng thought about it but couldn't find a suitable place to build a workshop. Since it wouldn't work in the city, Zhao Yufeng shifted his attention to the outside. The only thing he had to worry about was safety. Does His Excellency remember the cave where the fierce flaming oil was stored? Zhao Yufeng probed. Ouyang Shua's heart stirred and he said uncertainly, "You mean that you want to build the factory inside the cave? Did you find a suitable cave?" Seeing that His Excellency was interested, Zhao Yufeng gradually became more confident and said, "That's right." When the fierce flaming oil was stored, this subordinate specially investigated and found that there were many such natural caves at the foot of the Rocky Mountain range. These caves were of different sizes and were of different heights. The cave was as big as the Shanghai town from before. The highest parts of the caves were more than 20 meters high, and the average was more than 5 meters. What's more, there were underground rivers in some of the caves. The water source was abundant and the air circulation was smooth. Therefore, this subordinate thought that it would be a good choice to build the factory in the cave. It can be put to use as long as we make some modifications. Ouyang Shua nodded. It seemed that he had previously neglected the wealth hidden in the Rocky Mountain range. The first place to use caves should be the winemaking workshop. It was used to store the 3-flower wine and let it age well. At that time, he didn't pay much attention to it. Next was the cave where the fierce flaming oil was stored. Because this matter was handled by the combat division, Ouyang Shua didn't go to the site to investigate. He didn't know that such caves were actually common. He didn't expect that Zhao Yufeng was a perceptive person and keenly noticed the strategic use of the cave. Not bad, Yufeng, your suggestion is very good. I approve. Ouyang Shua immediately made the decision. If the factory could be built in the caves, it would naturally be the best choice. In this way, not only would they not need to occupy the limited land in the city, but they would also be very safe. What's more, if it was built in the caves, it would be very hidden and could easily escape the detection of spies. Yes, Zhao Yufeng replied loudly. This time, he was much more confident than before. After Zhao Yufeng left, Ouyang Shua was still thinking about the cave. In his opinion, it was necessary to arrange for the construction division to do a thorough investigation of the caves in the territory. In modern society, this kind of cave would be a natural air raid shelter, and also an excellent military base. Whether it was for military production or weapons research and development, it would be very suitable. He couldn't be muddle-headed again and let this precious wealth go to waste. Of course, after the investigation was done, the use of the caves needed to be planned systematically. They couldn't just rush into it. Ouyang Shua immediately wrote an approval letter detailing his arrangements. Then, he called the secretary by Nanpu and asked him to pass it to the director of the construction division, Zhao Duong. To be continued. Chapter 184. P.S. Finally, it wasn't easy. July 1st, 4 in the afternoon. The last batch of passengers boarded the spaceship. At 5 in the afternoon, spaceships took off from various spaceports around the world. After assembling in space, they formed a huge fleet consisting of thousands of spaceships and headed for Planet Hope. The mighty fleet carried the last hope of humanity and the desire of a civilization for a new life as it headed for the vast and boundless universe, heading for an unknown world. According to the experience of the advance team, the fleet would need to travel in space for at least 10 years before they could reach Planet Hope. At 8 in the evening, which was also 8 in the morning in-game, a system announcement sounded. World announcement. Earth on Lo has officially entered the global online era. The game will undergo a major update effective immediately. For the specific content, please check the official website. Gaia had already built the game's official website into the game. Players could log into the official website and game forums at any time to check the relevant information. This was also the key reason why Ouyang Shuo still had some understanding of territorial construction despite being a solo adventurer in his previous life. On the main page of the official website, the headline was not the content of the system update, but a farewell speech by the federal president, announcing to the people that they were officially bidding farewell to Mother Earth. More importantly, in the speech, the president finally revealed the secret of calculating personal asset. Due to interstellar migration, most of the fixed assets, including houses, factories, machinery, and equipment, were abandoned on Earth and could not be taken away. This also included the loss of many intangible assets, causing many billionaires and celebrities to become penniless overnight. In an instant, the citizens of the world were on the same starting line. When they arrived at Planet Hope, how to balance their personal assets was a very crucial problem. If there was no compensation, then it would be very unfair to those who lost their wealth. This was because when these people were on Earth, they had made many indelible contributions to the interstellar migration work. The future Planet Hope also needed this group of entrepreneurs and artists to contribute their strength to the construction of a new society. After all, they could not let an entrepreneur become a lumberjack. This did not conform to the division of labor in society, nor did it conform to the basic principles of human resource allocation. It was a huge waste of human resources. Moreover, their lost wealth was caused by natural disasters and was considered an unavoidable force. The federal government had the obligation to pay for their lost wealth. Of course, he couldn't completely compensate them for the loss of his wealth. Because this wealth had indeed been abandoned on Earth, it was necessary to formulate a compensation coefficient. In order to determine a reasonable compensation coefficient, the economics experts of the Federation racked their brains and wrote all kinds of functions. In the middle, there was also the game between the financial groups and the federal government. It was extremely difficult. Finally, with the support of Gaia's powerful computing power, the Federation government decided to adopt a universal compensation system. In order to complement the compensation mechanism, the Federation also created a new concept, achievement value. This meant that the personal assets of all the citizens were multiplied by the compensation coefficient. The result was not a new asset data, but an achievement value. Why was it not new asset data? It was because most of the physical assets had been abandoned on Earth. Liquid assets without the support of fixed assets were just a bunch of meaningless data that could not buy anything. Achievement points would play a crucial role on Planet Hope, similar to achievement points in games. According to the number of achievement points, citizens could obtain different levels of authority. The Confederation divided the authorities into 9 levels: SSS, SS, S, A, B, C, D, E, and F. Different authorities would be allocated different resources and social status upon arrival on Planet Hope. SSS level authority was unique and exclusive to Gaia. Activating this authority meant checking Gaia's core database. It required the consent of more than 75% of the citizens to activate this authority. SSS level authority was also unique and exclusive to the President of the Federation. Furthermore, it was only available during the President's term. At the end of the President's term, the authority would automatically be transferred to the next President of the Federation. This meant that ordinary citizens could only obtain S-level authority at most. F-level authority required at least 100 achievement points. Every increase in level would increase the achievement points by 10 times. In the same way, S-level authority required at least 100 achievement points. The highest compensation coefficient was 001, and the lowest was 00001. The more one's personal assets, the lower the compensation coefficient. If a citizen's personal assets were less than 10,000 credits, they would obtain a compensation coefficient of 001. If a citizen's personal assets were more than 100 million credits, they would obtain a compensation coefficient of 00001. In other words, a low-income household with 10,000 credits could obtain 100 achievement points and obtain F-level authority. A tycoon with 100 million credits could obtain 10,000 achievement points and obtain D-level authority. A tycoon with assets of more than 10 billion could obtain 1 million achievement points and obtain B-level authority. The world's richest man, the father of Jack Dawson, the Lord of America's Liberty County, Jacob Dawson, the only tycoon with assets of more than 100 billion, could obtain 10 million achievement points and obtain A-level authority. The compensation coefficient was not only related to one's personal assets, but it also took into account occupational factors. Of course, it was mainly targeted at politicians, scientists, scholars, and artists. According to Gaia's calculations, among the 1 billion immigrants, about 200 million citizens had obtained the lowest F-level authority. Most of them were underage and only had 100 achievement points. For example, Binger only had 100 achievement points. Her smart pet, Snow, was considered a personal item because she had brought it on the spacecraft, so it was not included in her personal assets. Of the remaining 800 million people, most of them had E-level authority. There were only slightly more than 1 million people with D-level authority, including billionaires, scientists, elite scholars, and elite politicians. There were more than 100,000 people with C-level authority, including billionaires with assets of more than 1 billion, top scientists, national treasure artists, and high-ranking officials of the Federation government. There were only 500 people with B-level authority, including billionaires with assets of more than 10 billion, national treasure scientists, and high-ranking officials of the Federation. As for A-level authority, there were less than 10 people. Their names were strictly confidential. As for whether anyone had S-level authority, that was even more of a national secret. Ouyang Shua estimated that there were definitely no more than 3 people. Needless to say, Ouyang Shua had obtained E-level authority and 2,000 achievement points. It was mainly because of the 800,000 credits in his account. Strictly speaking, the compensation mechanism set by the Federation government was already a great weakening to the major forces. A billionaire was only one level higher than the general public. When the compensation mechanism was introduced, it was resisted by the major forces. The result of the compromise was that Earth on Earth would not do any publicity and would be launched a year earlier, so as to give the major forces an advantage in the early stages. So, why did these major forces place so much importance on Earth? Was it just because there was a chance to obtain authentic manuals in the game? No, the root of it was the second chance to obtain achievement points. To give the general public a chance to turn things around, to be able to obtain a higher starting point on Planet Hope. It was also to appease the general public's dissatisfaction with the billionaires who had lost their assets but still obtained high-level authority. The Federation government stipulated that before arriving on Planet Hope, Gaia would liquidate the game assets of all players, just like it did with personal assets on Earth. Then, according to a certain ratio, it would be converted into achievement points. Please note that this conversion did not have a so-called discount factor. In other words, the more assets one had in the game, the higher the achievement points one would obtain. And this was also Ouyang Shua's ultimate goal. Through the advantage obtained in the game, when he obtained achievement points for the second time, he would increase his authority and lay a solid foundation for settling on Planet Hope. In addition, there was an additional benefit for Overlord players. According to the information sent back by the expedition team, the area of Planet Hope was more than 10,000 times the size of Earth. The area was very vast, and even if 1 billion immigrants were to enter Planet Hope, it would not cause any ripples. This was also very normal because in the universe, Earth was really considered a very small planet. Such a large planet needed people to open up wasteland. At this time, Overlord players could come in handy. This was also why Earth on Earth was so realistic. To be able to fight in the game for 10 years without being destroyed by others and still stand tall. Such a overlord was already qualified enough to open up wastelands in reality. Naturally, in reality there were no refugees spawning, and there were no teleportation circles. These two things were the biggest guarantee for Overlord players to be able to stand firm in the wilderness. However, in reality, there were countless robots that could completely replace the role of refugees. As for the teleportation circles, Sky Train expressed his dissatisfaction. As for the management team, the Federation also had a way to solve this problem for the Overlord, and that was the cyborgs. The high-level NPCs in the game all had their own independent consciousness. The Federation could transfer part of this consciousness into the cyborgs, completing the seamless transition between the virtual character in the game and the real person in reality. In other words, as long as the Overlord player's authority was high enough, he could completely copy all the important ministers and generals that he relied on into reality to help him continue to open up wastelands and build up his territory. This was because the production cost of cyborgs was very high, and they were considered half-human and half-machine creatures. Moreover, cyborgs were also divided into levels. The higher the level, the higher the production cost. Therefore, the struggle in the game could not be stopped for even a moment. To be continued. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.